working on the Jeep.
Yeah, probably so. All right, good evening, everybody. This is Daniel Benoit with the E.C.B.R.O. Tonight, uh, I'm gonna keep it simple. I wanted to talk to you guys. I was making some notes, or just jotting a few things down, and with a lot of recent posts and comments, a lot of people, a few people get the wrong idea about me, and or not understand what I say or try to explain. A lot of people are throwing stuff up, bringing stuff up from 3 years ago. And one thing I know the panel members know or are aware of this, and I've made a comment about it in the past. Some of my information and details on my Facebook page. Okay, um, some of it was stated, and I got questioned about it, which was no big deal. One, for example, was I had on there as far as my education purpose details was biologist or Bigfoot biologist, etc. Well, that was information, and the first time I got questioned about that, I admitted to the individual who questioned me about that. I said, well, okay. I said I wasn't a real biologist. It's just I put it in there because I do studies based off of biology and wildlife biology, and there's a few other things. Um, I said, yeah, maybe I was a little immature on putting that because another thing I put on there, I put Bigfoot biologist. I mean, I didn't see the harm in that, but then you have certain individuals that okay, they question that, and because in reality, there's no such thing. Not a Bigfoot biologist. Wildlife biologist, yes. Um, so that's something I wanted to clear up. Straight to the point, simple. And as far as my education goes, I have no specific degrees. I have a yes, I have a high school education. I have a high school diploma. That's the highest form of education I have right there. And like what I jotted down on notes, while it was on my mind earlier, I wrote it down briefly. And here I go on to write. I said, I am no more than a high school graduate. I have studied and researched independently in various fields, such as biology, ecology, wildlife, and some simple basic primatology. Some simple studies with our known primates and, to get familiar with them and their behaviors and so forth. I am not an expert by no means in any field whatsoever. Just that's something I want to make sure I made clear, and I stated that several times before. Um, and see, I continue to research in these fields and use these studies with experience from the field. Many many such as myself are discredited or mocked for the work and efforts we put forth into this field, and we do this all for passion as well as knowledge, and share all that we do. And of course, we do it for non-profit. We don't do it for profit. There's no money involved in this. There's no money gained by this. I think a lot of us on the panel here and viewers as well, I think will agree. There is individuals out there that do it for money. They charge outrageous prices for their expeditions. Um, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I pretty much kind of kept it simple. I don't have nothing to hide, like I mentioned before. I'm pretty much a straight shooter. Um, Sometimes I'm not the best at explaining things. Maybe I have a poor way of explaining things, but because that's why maybe I get questioned all the time. But then again, people hear my podcast, my blogs, and everything, and don't like what I have to say. Like the thing we were talking about yesterday, uh, the skeptics, non-believers. And the individual I was talking with earlier, he made some good points about as far as the skeptics and everything. I said I understand that, but you don't understand where I'm coming from as well. There is certain skeptics that question things in a kind of I don't know. Let's just say there's skeptics that are not like you, Corey. They ask stupid questions in reply to trying to make excuses up. Well, because everything you come up with is pretty logical. It makes sense. But so I'm not trying to compare the few bad apples with the rest of the skeptics. That's I think it's pretty safe to say that. I mean, in my on my defense. Um, I don't know. Is there anything I ever said or anything that any of you guys are unclear about as far as what I say or anything I might post?
No, I think I'm pretty clear on what your feelings and beliefs are.
Yeah.
No, you explain everything perfectly clear, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I hope, I guess what I'm saying is, if any of you never understand me or not not sure what I'm saying, um, definitely question me. I mean, I get people questioning me all the time, but then their questioning turns into something totally off the wall, and then when I speak my opinion and share why and tell them why I'm saying this and what I'm going at, and then it turns into, I don't want to say an attack, but you know, like I said, sometimes it's a debate where the two don't agree with each other, and sometimes I feel it's best to leave it alone and don't try to explain any further, because maybe either I don't know how to explain any better, or you realize that what you're trying to say is kind of like you're going down a dead end, and it's not going to go anywhere. But
Talking to a brick wall.
yeah, right, exactly. Maybe either I don't know how to explain it any better, or you realize that. Hold on, I hear myself repeating. Oh, was somebody playing it back? um, yeah, Paul, I know you're just jumping on. I don't know, were you watching anything from what I started?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, basically, all I'm saying is, for one thing, I'm very well misunderstood. And then I was going on to explain a little bit about who I am as far as an individual and as far as my education and everything. Hold on, I'm getting some major feedback.
That was me.
Oh, okay. Because I keep hearing myself repeat after I say it.
Yeah, I cut it off. I had got multiple.
Oh, okay. But no, Paul, what I was asking everybody on the panel, has there ever been anything to you guys that I might have said or posted or that's not clearly understood, or maybe you guys might have taken it a different way than I intended?
You got to be a little more specific. Exactly what is being called out that you've not been upfront about is because I mean you're just kind of being general.
Right. And with a lot of things, I do try to keep things simple. I mean, I try to make things simple.
You do.
Because like in a lot of my blog posts, most of the time I do try to use, I guess you could say, lame terms. Simple talk. I try not to get really scientific in explaining things. I mean, I do, but then again, I think a lot of what I try to say confuses people. you know, like the whole skeptic thing that we were talking about yesterday. How there's a lot of people that are still on that thing. And like I had a discussion with somebody earlier. I was telling everybody in Team Taser Facebook group, and of course everything there is all based off of science with them. I can't speak on all of them, but I don't know if they're. But it seems like a majority of them are all, I don't know, atheists. I don't know. I mean, because one little thing about religion came up somehow, and And then I got asked a question. Are you asking a religious question? I was like, right there when he asked that, I was like,
Yes.
I kind of
Yes.
started to think I saw where that was going,
Hey, Blake, I'm doing
and
just fine.
so
Hey,
Yeah,
Daniel.
well, I'm on the
hold
phone with
on,
my dog.
But Daniel
hold on,
never.
Can I call you? Can I call you back?
yeah, hold on 1 second. Okay, I was trying to. There we go. All right, what's that, Leo?
I know you would never. I mean, I was just gonna say, if somebody's an atheist and they disagree, then that's their opinion and their feeling. And I know you would never. You're a Christian and you're gonna be a Christian, and that's how you feel and what you are, and you're not going to um deny that in any shape, form, or fashion. You're going to stick with your belief, and that's what you should do.
Right, and the thing is, of course, when with I guess with what I was trying to, with what I was getting questioned about with the whole skeptic thing, it turned it, the conversation was a lot of it was with scientific, terms and explanations, and I did understand a lot of it, but then religion got brought into it, which a lot of people, you don't mix religion and Bigfoot. I said, okay, I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I mean, I've had this in the past, in other conversations, but I don't try to bring religion into anything that's related to Bigfoot or wildlife, period, or life in general, even though there's a lot of ways we can use religion to look at things. Steve actually brought up a good point earlier when he jumped on. We were talking, and how people say you can't. There's no science. Like, for example, science is. I was told science is not a religion. Well, I mean, in some terms it is. I mean, there's different types of science, uh, forms of science that it is religion. So I don't know if you could count Scientology, but
No.
no, but I know that's a whole different thing. But I don't know.
Well,
I
I think
know.
I think we have a problem with some people when it comes to people that are into Bigfooting and people that are also religious, is that you can say that there is no more proof that Bigfoot exists than that Jesus ever did.
Right.
I'm not bashing anybody who's religious. Believe me, I'm not. But
Right.
I've seen that conversation before. It's like, well, you're so against that Bigfoot exists, but yet you believe in the Bible and Jesus Christ, but there's no real more proof that Jesus exists. It's more of a
Hey,
belief
Corey.
system than anything else.
Hey, Corey.
Yes, sir.
If science, this is what Daniel was talking about a minute ago. If science, and people can say science, and I'm not trying to bring religion into this. This is just a statement. If science can sit there and say, well, we were just evolved and religious has nothing to do with it, then why would science use BC, which stands for before Christ, and AD, Asto Domini, in the year of our Lord, as a calendar? Why would science use Jesus as a way of telling time?
Well, I believe that. I mean, those terms, the AD and BC, had been changed back quite a few years ago. So now BC actually refers to before Common Era, ERA.
Yeah, they've changed it to BCE, before Common Era, but we're still in AD.
Yeah, well, AD was always after death, and yeah, but
Well,
you know,
Distinction or whatever.
Yeah, but the term AD and BC are not in the Bible anywhere. Um, now I'm a pastor, and I've been to school, and I've been, all that good stuff, and here, let me point out something about science. We're talking about the Bible when it was written, when these events took place thousands of years ago. Well, if that's the case, then how is it in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, it says, He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. Now, how in the world did they know that the Earth was round? They didn't have spaceships. They weren't able to, there's no way. So, science has been, around because that's us trying to figure out how things work, how things are. That's science.
Well, and
But as far as you say religion,
and that's
well, the Bible,
where religion came in, because religion was
I
what
believe in
any religion that was
on
around
account of
for.
dinosaurs in the book of Job. How did they know what dinosaurs were? I mean, it even mentions cavemen. I mean, how that these men were banished to the cleft of the rock to live in caves. The first cavemen, I guess you can say. But that's not the whole issue, to be honest. I mean, Daniel's got an opinion, and Daniel's got a belief, just like I do. And there's people that have the beliefs of science, and there's people that are agnostic. There's people that are atheists, and they have that right to believe so. But what they don't have the right to do is shove their beliefs down my throat and force me to believe what they believe. They should say, well, if you don't believe in the way I do, that's fine. We can still work together and find common ground. But,
Yeah.
just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean that I'm wrong, and it doesn't mean you're right. Because the first thing you're going to have to do is prove to me that there's not a God. And you can't do it. I can't prove to you there is a God. So therefore, we have to find common ground
It all comes
between
down
the
to belief. I mean, religion. I mean, pre-Christian religion, pre-Christian religions. They were basically what religion is a way for people to understand what was going on around them, and that's why you have so many different kind of religions. Native Americans, they saw a shooting star that was, a panther crossing the sky, and then you have different religions that thought a shooting star was something else. It's just,
Let me tell you, the Native Americans, they believe in the Father, the Creator. They don't believe. I mean, I've dealt with Native Americans, and they, as far as Jesus Christ goes, some of them do and some of them don't, but they all believe. Everything pretty much believes that there is a God, a Godhead. Even the Aztecs, the Incas, all of them believe there is sun God. There was someone above us, responsible for our existence.
but a
That
lot, but a lot of pre-Christian religions were, a lot of them before Christianity, a lot of them were matrifocal religions that focused on a female deity. A lot of Native American tribes believe in a male and a female deity. And that it wasn't basically until Christianity came along that it turned into basically a male centralized religion. Jesus was a man. Um, but like I said before that, a lot of pagan religions, a lot of the religions, they had both sides, a male and a female, because they knew that how do you make a baby? You need a man and a woman. How was the world created? Well, you'd think you'd probably need a male deity and a female deity. So, but to me, religion, I don't think it has any place involved in the Bigfoot thing. I just don't, because then I think you're just muddying the waters too much.
First,
I can understand where you come from, but yeah, hold on.
Well,
When I
like, I
talk,
mean, people have said, okay, bring Christianity into the whole Bigfoot thing. So does that mean that on Noah's Ark there was a male and a female Bigfoot?
yes.
Is there any mention of that in the Bible at all? So that's why, to me, you have to keep those things separate. So religion is a belief. Bigfoot is a
In
belief.
the Bible, he chose Noah and his wife and his three sons and their three wives, and then he gave them a command, and he told them to go and collect two of every flesh, good or bad. Um, the main characters were in charge of the ark, But as far as saving, what he's created, he told them, say, to every flesh. And now when he says flesh, he's mean every being. So,
Right.
right. So then he say two of everything. And I don't know what was around then. Nobody does. And I don't know if it was giraffes or lions. Nobody knows that. That's just what uh, commercialism has produced. Paintings and pictures. I mean, we don't know if it was two zebra. We don't know if they were even existed. We don't know. That's just something we were taught as children. With the picture of a Noah's Ark and two lions and two elephants and two. But he said, collect all things what creepeth on the earth, all the fowl that fly. I mean, he's whatever was inside the ark perished, even in the
Yeah.
oceans. Everything perished.
But I
So
think,
he had to.
I mean, would
He
we
had to
all
save
agree,
everything.
would we all agree that maybe it's best to maybe leave religion out of the whole Bigfoot thing? Because then if you not allow, but if that's brought in, everybody's got different religious beliefs.
Sure.
So how do you align everything? Well, the Christians believe this, the Muslims believe this, the Jews believe this, the pagans believe this. To me, Bigfoot exists. It's an animal that we haven't discovered. Maybe it's a remnant of something else, and they haven't quite died off yet. But I don't think you can bring religion into it. As much as you might believe in religion and being really religious is your thing, I just don't think you can bring those preconceived notions into the whole Bigfoot thing. To me.
Well,
Well, being
like
a man of
today.
faith, I mean, I believe that the Bible reveals everything. We just have to be able to know how to translate and interpret it. Go to your Hebrew, words, because that's what it was written in, was Hebrew. It wasn't written in English. The version we've got is only about 600 years old. I mean, what we got is a piece. But, to say whether or not it is something that we should eliminate from Bigfoot, well, if you're going to eliminate religion from Bigfoot, then you might as well go ahead and eliminate everything else. And Bigfoot should just be Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Trial and
but see,
error.
I don't see the commonality between allowing religion into Bigfoot and allowing anything else into Bigfoot. I mean, to me, if you want to be really religious and really be into, say, I don't know, NASCAR, this driver, he's a really religious, he's a good Christian, he's going to win. Jesus is going to see that he wins. To me, it just being that much into it, I understand, and that's great. If it makes you a better person and it makes you happy, that's great. But you can't I don't think, bring these preconceived notions into something as arbitrary, really, as Bigfoot. I just don't think you can. It muddies the waters too much, because then you're filtering everything through your experiences. The other night, I had mentioned that when I talk to people that have conspiracy theories about Bigfoot and, oh, the government knows and they're covering it up. When I've talked to those people and had conversations with them, they think the government is involved with conspiracy theories with everything. JFK, 9/11, the Civil War, everything. To me, again, it just muddies the water. I'm not trying to belittle the religious folks. I'm really not. I'm a religious person myself. But to me, I don't think you can bring that in. If you're looking for Bigfoot and you find, in something, you can't say, well, Luke 27 says this. To me, how does that help? Does it help you find one if you bring that into it? If you bring the Bible along with you when you're out squatching, is that going to help you find a Bigfoot? So to me, just discard it. It's an animal that lives in the woods. It has to eat, pee, poop, reproduce, sleep. Those are the things you go with. You can't throw all these other things into that. Because again, it just muddies the water to me personally.
Well, one thing I was going to say real quick, and I don't know, Paul, if you saw my little side note right there, because I was hearing myself repeat. That's the only reason I blocked you. I mean, muted
Oh,
you.
okay.
But now, what I was gonna mention, as far as the whole religion thing, it, it's like it didn't intentionally get brought up. I was simply stating that the one, as far as science goes, in the conversation I was in earlier, I was referring to evolution with what I was saying, because when I was saying I don't believe or agree with science to the point of creation, and of course that's referring to the evolution thing. And then so the next question was asked, are you asking, the individual said, are you asking a religious question? And before I went any further, I knew where he was getting at. I understood just from him asking that. And then he said something else. But I asked, are you atheist? Because why would you, that's the only reason, that's the only way and why it got brought up. I mean, I wasn't trying to get religious with nobody as far as trying to, I don't know, because the conversation started from one thing and it slowly molded over and developed into something totally different. And of course, I wasn't trying to go there, but of course, this individual, that's where it kind of went. So,
Yeah.
and like one of our uh, people, one of our viewers said, science tries to separate it out. However, they don't believe in God either, or Bigfoot for that matter, which he's right. Because technically, according to science, Bigfoot does not exist, and that's where of course, I think that's part of where our skeptics kind of fall into. But yet, they're not denying Bigfoot, but they're not also accepting it either, which I'm well aware of that too.
Well, science is all about proof,
Right,
and we've not given them any proof. Nobody's given them good, substantial proof of Bigfoot.
right,
Nobody's given them good, substantial proof of Jesus. I mean, I've read statistics that 90 to 95% of scientists are atheists because they're all about, you have to show me. I want to see it. Can you
right.
show it to me? You can't show
Well,
it to me, then
more
I'm
and
not
more
going to believe it.
archaeology is done in the Middle East, is proving the Bible true more and more all the time. Different towns, different. Am I muted?
No, you're fine. No, now if you are, you would be able to
Different
see the
towns,
icon.
different places, bones, from where
Here,
this story came from, or for that, they're finding more and more uh, things that the Bible has said that nobody ever knew for sure before. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you also have this. I've read a few different studies where they're saying that all human beings descended from a human-like, I guess you could say, thing that came out of the continent of Africa. So if you believe in Adam and Eve, then the Garden of Eden must have been in Africa. But I don't believe in the Bible they mention exactly where the Garden of Eden is. I'm not sure. I'm not that religious of a fella. But
I think they've decided that they think the Garden of Eden was in Iraq.
which isn't in Africa. So to me, science is saying that we're all traced back to an African tribe, from an African man and woman, and then people spread out from there. But what the Bible says, oh, we all came from Adam and Eve. Well, if Adam and Eve they weren't in Africa, they were in the Middle East. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with belief. You can believe whatever you want. That's perfectly fine. But until you can offer up proof, like with the Bigfoot thing, of course, scientists are going to be skeptics. Their whole thing is proof. You have to show me. Hey, I just came up with this new vaccine that can cure this. Well, okay, but I'm not going to buy what you're saying. You have to show me. That's why they do trials on these different drugs. Hey, we have a trial we did on this drug, and it's been shown to help with AIDS or HIV, say. Then a lot of them are going to go, maybe this thing, maybe it does work. We need more trials. They're all about, you have to show me. And with the Bigfoot field, we haven't shown them anything, and I can see that's why they're not getting involved, because we've not shown them anything. I had said the other night, you get somebody who's a wildlife biologist, and they go and they do appearances, and people are asking, well, what do you think about the Bigfoot thing? What do you think about the Bigfoot thing? After a while, they say to themselves, I think I'm going to go look into this Bigfoot thing myself, because I've heard a lot about it, and I have people asking me questions. I know. I'll go online. They go online and they see what the Bigfoot enthusiasts are offering up as proof. Do you think they would want to get involved? Just get on YouTube and search Bigfoot videos. If you were a scientist, would you want to jump in and go, yeah, I'll ruin my credibility by getting involved with this ridiculous stuff that's being put out there? That's why they're not getting involved. We're doing it to ourselves by the sort of proof that we're putting out there. I don't think anybody can disagree with that.
I agree. It's the hoaxers that give us good people that are trying to do some good research, regardless if it's religion or not. But is there in any religion that states that there's a quote unquote Bigfoot or Sasquatch? No. So therefore,
Native American.
I mean, I'm religious, and I believe in God and Jesus Christ, but I don't bring that into my research because it doesn't state in the Bible anything about Bigfoot.
No, but there's a few Native American religions that do
say Bigfoot.
Native American cultures that do. I don't know about their religions, but their culture does. Now that's different than a religion. Am I correct?
I would have to say yeah, but I mean, even in the Bible, it does not mention, or it does not even say, it mentions a few names of just a few animals, but
giants.
Well, yeah, as far as giants, they were, giants were actually people, and
exactly,
and but back to the Noah in the ark, I mean, yeah, no specific animal name was named, or creature. I mean, like Paul was explaining, it was every beast of the land and so forth, was called to be brought forth of two of every kind, male and female, and. But yeah, there was no specifics, specified. So, but
I mean, if that's your thing and you want to bring religion into it, I'm all for it. I'm all for anything that can further anything we do in our research, be it good, not bad. But if your religion's your thing, I'm in more power for it, man. I mean, I think it's great, but it's just it's nothing I've ever thought about doing. Going out there, but. If it helps you, then hey, I'm all for it. We're all different. We all do this different ways, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every time when I'm in the field, observing, scouting around, whatever you want to call it, I mean, I try to make, I try to look at everything in a logical way. I try not to jump. What we've often discussed about that tree break is from Bigfoot. No, I mean, I look at things and what I explained to many other people. So, this could be a number of things. This could be weather. Some things are obvious weather damage. Some things are obvious bear damage. And a lot of, I've heard people say, well, even I've heard Fred say this. Well, if a bear did this, you would see claw marks, teeth marks. Not necessarily. It just can't rule all those things out though, because there's no proof saying otherwise. Like I said, I've already mentioned weather, snow weight. That's all weather related. But different signs, and now tracks. I think that's an iffy thing that can go both ways. I've heard people such as John Bindernagel. He's a wildlife biologist. To him, foot tracks is physical evidence. Now, some scientists will say, no, that's not good enough evidence. I know Todd Disotell stated that's not physical evidence. Well, as far as I'm concerned, those are opinions. There's no right, there's no wrong in that situation. But I think in my opinion, if someone was asking me, well, what do you think about Bigfoot tracks? Well, if you could rule out that they're not bear or human, I mean, what other creature is out roaming in the middle, deep out in the woods, barefoot with giant feet? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that is physical evidence, and I'm convinced that is physical evidence. That's my opinion, and I don't expect other people to agree with that. That's my opinion. I think that's safe to say. I mean, if somebody says, well, like for example, uh, I have my casts out in my well, most of my casts were in my father's garage. Well, my father told me a couple guys from the church came by to take care of something, and you know, I had a couple of my casts and stuff laying around, and the one guy he knows what I'm involved in. And he kind of puts his head down and shakes his head, and this is my father telling me this. He said he looks up at my father, Billy. He said there ain't no such thing. You know, my father showed him a couple of my casts, and these are my smaller casts. And this one of the ones he showed him was like about a 13-inch track I had. And the guy said, "Well, my grandson has a 13-inch foot." And my father replied back to him, "Is he out running around in the middle of the George Washington National Forest?" I mean, of course, the guy didn't say nothing else after that, but and I told Dad, I said, Dad, I keep all my other ones over such and such. I said, he said, "Oh, I didn't know where you kept them." I said, "Well, I got much bigger ones than that." you know, but I'm just saying that's I don't know. It depends how people look at that. People have ants for everything. I've heard that from other people. Well, 13-inch track. They all somebody I used to work with. So, well, that's human. He told me the same thing. My son wears a 13-inch foot, shoe. But I don't know. Like I said, it all depends on opinion and how you look at things. I mean,
And the thing is with footprint casts is I think maybe we could all agree that none of them have been necessarily definitive enough where you could say that it wasn't faked. I mean, the whole term Bigfoot came from Ray Wallace, the Ray Wallace case in California, where it
right.
turned out years later he was using when he was doing road construction, where he had some carved wooden feet that he made that he would use, and he would leave these around his construction sites. And it turned out the family years later came out with these set of carved wooden feet that he actually used. So the term Bigfoot that we're using actually came from an entirely hoaxed case.
Well, yeah, I'm well aware of that. I read that story in the book I have by Jeff Meldrum, and but then again, there's another thing that's stated in there, and I've seen it more recent documentaries involving Jimmy Chilcutt. I know most of you guys are familiar with him. He's done studies and analysis on footcasts right along with Jeff Meldrum. He's done one on a giant handprint. And now here, he's a former FBI forensic analysis, and he clearly states, I know this is hearsay or so, but this is from off of his findings on his work that he clearly stakes his reputation on his findings, and he clearly states that there is a large unknown primate roaming North America.
But
Now he's not a scientist,
The dermal ridges run in the opposite direction than ours
right?
or Kent.
yeah,
Because there's only two species on Earth that have them: human primates, which humans are known as considered a primate. So, and then non-human primates. But he stated non-human, but that's coming out of his mouth on that part.
yeah.
So, I mean, but like I said, he's not a scientist. So maybe if he was a scientist, of course, maybe he would get more credibility being labeled a scientist, but he's not. So I don't know. Then again, it depends on how people look at the individual and their I guess their job position. Because like me, I think like I know I'm just one of many. Like a lot of us on the panel. I mean, a lot of us we're not biologists or we're not scientists in any way, shape, or form. But we do what we do because we find it as a passion, but yet we take it sincerely. And but the thing is, people of educated, standards that might have degrees in different forms of science, biology, et cetera, they look down on us because as far as I'm concerned, we're nobodies to a lot of these individuals. And I'm learning to overlook some of them. I don't mind getting questioned about what I do or say or post. That's why I want people to question me. If they're not understanding it, don't assume I'm saying this. Ask me, is this what you're saying? I'll better explain it if I have to. I mean, I'll try to find a way to explain it. I mean, anyone that knows me, especially my own family, I'm not the best at explaining things. So, but I try. I'm easier. I can put things down in, blogs, or I could type things. I could write things down. But I don't know. So, oh,
Well,
Paul.
when you
Oh,
ask when you ask for skeptics, uh, you know, that's what you got.
oh yeah, absolutely. But
You open that can of worms yourself.
right, but the thing is, maybe that's the thing. But with what I'm saying, I take it that they're not understanding me. I mean, huh?
Hey, you know
Uh,
what, Daniel?
yeah.
You know what's ironic? I was sitting here thinking that those prints that were found over on High Knob, over on my brother-in-law's property, were found by a preacher of all people, a well-known preacher of that. So I mean, that goes to show you that he just came upon them and was just blown away. And he's a preacher, but he doesn't no, he doesn't bring it into it. It's something that we can't explain where it came from in the middle, miles and miles from any civilization or cabins. And so it's kind of ironic that we're talking about this and a preacher
Yeah.
finds us prints.
Well, my thing is why would you even bring it up? Why
Yeah,
would you be out Bigfooting and be thinking Jesus stuff?
right.
Why? I mean, to me, like I said, I'm a religious fella. I'm not a Christian. I'm a religious fella. I've never been out in the woods and started thinking about my religion into relation to what I'm doing or what I'm finding. I just wouldn't. To me, it bears no. There's no bearing on what I'm finding. And when I'm out squatching, I'm not thinking. I'm not running it through a framework of religion.
Right.
I mean, and that thing.
I mean, I totally, yeah,
That
I totally agree
too.
with you. I mean, I do the same thing. I mean, I look at things in form of nature, and yeah, I do use science to a certain extent
Yeah.
as far as logical, things, trying to explain things logically in a more common sense way of, you know, what I'm doing and looking, observing, but like, let me ask you, like, was I wrong for just bringing up the fact that when this individual was talking about, science, and how science is, I understand science is used to prove things and to find truth in things. Well, was I wrong by saying, well, I don't agree with science when it comes to creation? Basically, in other words, I bluntly said, well, I don't believe in evolution. You know,
It's
so
your
he knew
opinion.
yeah, and he knew where I was coming from. So, and that's where the religion thing got brought up and got brought into everything. I
Hey,
mean,
Corey,
Yes, sir.
the only time that I bring religion up is when I say, man, I pray today I see a Bigfoot.
there you go.
And again, I think sometimes when with some religious folks, and I've known some people that are, they call themselves religious, they call themselves Christian, and I see the way they act, the way they talk, and they're like, well, geez, I don't know if Jesus would be very happy with what you just said. But then you get some people that bring it into. I worked with a woman, a born again Christian. I went to high school with her son. Great dude. She brought religion into everything. I
Yeah.
worked with her. If at the end of the day she was doing her bookkeeping and everything came out great, praise the Lord, all my numbers came out great, that's fine. But to me, if you have that much of a belief where you run everything you encounter through that filter of religion, you kind of have a bias just starting out. Where with the Bigfoot thing, I don't think it's necessary. You found some
Yeah,
footprints in the woods.
right.
What does this have to do with that? Or you found, some tree breaks. What does that have to do with Jesus or the Bible or any of that stuff? But you get some people, like I said, the Bible, Jesus, Christianity, Catholicism, they bring it up. It comes into everything, and that's fine. But I think if you start saying, I found this, and because of my religious belief, it's this. I mean, even Dr. Meldrum, I think he's I want to say he's a Lutheran, I believe. And I notice, and from what I've read, he's had issues with I think Lutheran maybe. He's had issues with local people to his area that are also Lutherans that think he's completely wrong. How can you believe in this and be a good Lutheran guy? Like, well, what difference does it make? So what? Because they're all about, no, there can't be a humanoid people. There's humans, and then there's monkeys. There's nothing in between. When he says that I think there might be, he's had actually issues. I want to say he's a Lutheran. I forget exactly what it was. But I know I've read in a few spots that he's had problems at his local church, because apparently he's a pretty religious fella, where people don't want any doings with him because they don't think he should be mixing the two together.
You know what the problem is? We live in a time where everybody is offended by everything.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I don't care what you do, how you do it, it offends somebody, no matter what.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I mean, before, questioning science, when, people had a problem with me doing that, because, like, it's more like they make it sound like it was a, whoa, that's a big no-no,
Well, like, just to kind of piggyback on what Steve was saying.
Yeah.
Too many people these days are just offended by the very idea that different ideas from their own exist. I believe this way. How can you possibly believe different from what I believe? So then what happens is you can't have reasonable conversations anymore.
Right.
You say something and people just flip out and lose their minds.
Yeah.
There's no respectful disagreement anymore. It's, you believe differently from me, so that means you must hate what I believe, and I hate you for what you believe. You can't just respectfully disagree anymore. That doesn't seem to be a thing. Remember respectful disagreement? Remember how cool that was? You just don't have that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and the whole thing is, a lot of this got brought up because of what I'm trying to do. I thought it'd be cool to have a show with try to get non-believers and skeptics involved. I mean, and the thing is, all right, maybe this. Let me say this and present this. Maybe this should have been a little bit better approach to what I was doing. Yeah, I want all skeptics and believers to participate through the live chat, watch the show, ask questions. If any of them might be curious and wanting to learn more, because they're, as far as skeptics go, there's a lot of them that are curious and want to know more if it is real. And then you got non-believers. Some of them might get a curiosity, like, well, what if, Then you got you got non-believers that like it's just total BS anyway. I've dealt with plenty of non-believers, but maybe I should have just left it as a simple invitation and left it at that, because when I was another thing I was trying to explain to the individual earlier in the conversation was, well, I was trying to justify what I was saying as far as the whole term ignorant. Well, there is certain ones that are stubborn and hard-headed and just maybe don't want to look at things completely openly, but yeah, then again, if most skeptics are considering the possibility, I guess that is having an open mind, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I should have presented it as just, hey, skeptics and non-believers, let's talk Bigfoot. You're curious about it? Ask me questions. Ask us questions. Let's try to explain. Let's maybe try to shed some light on the subject, and maybe give you a little bit of better insight. all I was trying to do is make it friendly, and maybe I was wrong by saying that some skeptics and non-believers are ignorant and blind to, whatever. I mean, I didn't mean no harm by it, but yet, I mean, some pointed out I was wrong in doing so. But
Yeah, but I think you get that on both sides. You get that on the skeptic side and the believer's side.
right,
Skeptics, you could show them a few things. Well, this is why I think, like I could say to them, this is why I think there's a possibility. And they could say, well, this is why I think it's not a possibility.
right,
But when you come in and say, well, this is one of the reasons I think it's a possibility. Most Native American tribes in North America have stories about something you would call a Bigfoot.
right,
They're not trying to get on television. They're not trying to sell books. They're
right,
not trying to get you go on a paid expedition. Most of a lot of the books I've read about Native American culture and history, they don't generally just make up animals out of whole cloth. They don't
right,
just make up an animal. They'll take animals and, turtles that talk, and you have the story of the white buffalo calf woman and that sort of thing. But they don't just generally make things up. So I think
right,
this came from somewhere. But that being said, I can also say that, yes, maybe they had experiences, and maybe they died out long ago. I hadn't thought of it watching the Patterson-Gimlin footage one time on the television and just asking my wife, who has no interest in the subject at all. She doesn't think it's ridiculous. She just has no interest in it. And
right,
her thought is maybe that one right there is one of the last ones, and that they just don't exist anymore. Maybe they
right,
did. Maybe they did in the past. Now they just don't anymore. And that made me think, yeah, maybe we're dealing with a species that there's only 10 left, or maybe there's only 2 left, or 30 left. That there's not this, just with the amount of sighting reports you hear, there would have to be thousands of them. And to be thousands of them, wouldn't they be seen a lot more often? And wouldn't we have found some sort of physical, tangible evidence by now if there were that many? Because I've heard people, the subjects come up. How many do you think there are in North America? And I've
oh
heard,
yeah,
10,000, 30,000, 30,000. 30,000 Bigfoot in North America. So how many is that per state? And they're still only seen basically by Bigfooters?
right,
That just doesn't seem very likely to me. So again, like I said, I'm thinking maybe there's only a handful left. Maybe maybe they did die out 20 or 30 years ago. Maybe Patty was the last one. I don't know, and that's kind of how I approach it. Maybe it doesn't exist, but
right.
still just a few left.
And well, in today's world, it kind of goes along with what Steve was saying as far as everyone takes offense to everything on this and that. Then again, as far as believing what people say and you know, and their credibility as far as their character, if you believe them and have faith in their, what they're telling you. Um, the whole thing is, we live the way I feel. We live in a far-fetched world, which discredits a lot of things in the world. You know, there's a reality, but yet also there's things that are far-fetched and maybe exaggeration. So to the point where I think there is some people might exaggerate what they see, but at the same time,
Yeah.
with the number of sightings and reports in history, and I've heard this that alone is not even worth considering as any bit of evidence or credibility to the possible existence of Bigfoot, which I can understand to a certain extent, but you cannot say every single one of them is either lying or perhaps loony or seeing something.
No,
Seeing.
yeah, and my standard is that if 99% of them are bogus, that still leaves that 1%. And you have people that don't.
Right.
I can understand somebody who's been a Bigfooter for years. They want to get on television. They have a blog. They have a YouTube channel. They have 5 Facebook pages. I can understand their motivation for saying that they saw something. But when you get sighting reports from people who had no previous interest in it at all, what is their motivation? And again,
Yeah.
like I said, I keep coming back to the story, the Native American stories. They, anyways, were seeing something. They basically all have stories about something that we would call a Bigfoot.
Right.
So that makes me think, geez, maybe there's something to this. And when you get these stories from, I've seen sighting reports from somebody, and you go look at their Facebook page, they see a Bigfoot every morning on their way to work. And they've been abducted by aliens. And their house is haunted. Right away, I have to discount what they're saying.
Yeah.
But if you get somebody that I've seen people where they've posted their encounter to groups, and they're like, I don't know what that. Can you help me? I don't know what the hell this. What's going on? I know by seeing it that it's. I guess it would be. I mean, everybody knows what Bigfoot is. I think. I don't think there's
Yeah.
people that don't know what it is.
Even a non-believer knows what a Bigfoot is, even if they believe it or not.
A tall thing, running across the road in front of their car, they're gonna go, "Oh my! I think that was a Bigfoot." And I've been in groups where we've been contacted by somebody who had no interest in it, and I've actually researched the person themselves, and they have, looking online anyways, they've had no interest, no mention of Bigfoot ever before this. So
Right.
those are the ones that make me wonder. The ones that I kind of tend to disregard are from Bigfooters and Bigfoot enthusiasts and paranormal enthusiasts.
Right.
Those I think you have to kind of just throw out, which maybe I shouldn't, but I think you kind of have to.
Yeah, it's like yeah, I understand what you're saying because there is times you do have to be careful and you have to be able to know which ones to weed out. It's like tending a garden. You got to know which ones are the weeds, which ones are the good plants. And which ones to kind of like nourish more. Kind of feed or give attention to. But I don't know.
There's 7 of us in the room right now.
Yeah,
we could all read a different Bigfoot report, and I would be curious as to who would believe it and who wouldn't, percentage-wise. I've read encounter reports of like, this is so bogus, it's not even funny.
Right.
Where somebody else go, oh, I don't know, like Patterson Gimlin.
Yeah.
How many people look at that and go, oh my God, it's so completely a guy in a suit? And people have said it's obvious, that's the term, obviously a guy in a suit. I've looked at it and say, I don't see what you're seeing that makes it obviously. I go, what do you see? Like, do you see a zipper that I don't see? Because I'm not seeing it. Like I said, even showing the clip to my wife, she's like, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
If that's a suit, it's a damn good suit.
Yeah, no, I have a friend, a real good friend of mine, and he's also a coworker. The gentleman, he's 57 years old, and here, keep in mind, I'll try to give you a little insight on this individual. For starters, he is a skeptic. Now, I share a lot of my findings with him. I talk about things, what I've found. I've shown him, a few pictures, and he doesn't discredit them, but then he always comes back and asks, well, could it have been this? Then some of it, like I show him pictures of structure in the trees, and some of the ones I get excited about. There's ones I want to lean, okay, hey, I think a Bigfoot might have done this, but then again, I'm not sure. Then he'll come back with logical explanations. But apart from that, he has a serious interest in the subject of Bigfoot. I guess he's kind of like, I could almost compare him with you, Corey. But this individual, here's a gentleman. I guess you could say he considers himself like a mountain man. Since a young kid, he spent a lot of time out in the woods, mountains, and camping. He's actually claims to literally lived in the woods for a long time, as far as the way he was living, camping and stuff all the time. Well, he's told me about a lot of the different wildlife he's ever come across, and he said the whole time he spent all his life in the woods, he said he's never seen or experienced anything like a Bigfoot till he recalled a certain particular night. This is just one thing. Now, I'm not going to really get into that one there, but he explained to me where it was, and At the time, there was no house there, which there's a house there now, and he was taking a shortcut home, and he, I don't know, had this presence. He felt something, and then sure enough, he heard a growl up behind him. Now, parts of him want to believe he thought it could have been a bear, even though he's been around bear, never had a bear growl at him before, and he happened to take notice the eye shine, whatever, because there was enough, I guess, moonlight or something given off where there was a reflection of the eyes, and he said he saw red eye shine. He said the eye shine was around 7.5 foot tall, so, but he said he didn't see what it was, so he couldn't, claim either way. That's just one little story. Now, there was another incident, him and two other gentlemen, this is when they were in their younger days, this, I believe it was probably in their maybe 30 years ago, he claims. But yeah, around 30 years ago, maybe it wasn't that long ago, but I'm saying 30 years ago, where when they were camping, one of the guys that he was camping with had to use a bathroom, so they had to set it up the way you got to walk, away from camp. And I guess when the individual got to the location where he was going to be indisposed, before he got to even get close to doing his business, he heard movement right next to him in the bushes, and all he had was a flashlight, and he happened to turn in that direction with the light to see what might have been there, and he was face to face with well, at that time he never spoke about what he saw. The subject was around 6.5, 7 foot tall. Because the whole night, the story goes where the individual did not ever go to sleep that night, because where they were at, they were far from vehicles or wherever they were coming from. But the individual stayed up all night feeding the fire, making sure the fire stayed lit. And ever since that day, he never said a word up till probably a little less than a month ago, where this is the guy I work with was telling me this. He still keeps in touch with this guy, and he finally got to talking to him, because I guess it came to his mind where he wanted to bring it up and talk to the guy about it. And he told me, the gentleman I work with told me exactly what the guy said and what I was just explaining to you guys, that he was 5 feet away from this subject, and I guess he didn't want to tell nobody because he was scared, and probably no one would have believed him. And I think that's the case with a lot of people, though. But after all these years, the guy never spoke a word about it, didn't want to, but I guess they were close enough friends where he was able to kind of push it out of him, or pull it out of him. So, but yeah, this gentleman was 5 feet away. The subject, the alleged Sasquatch, whatever, he said didn't make no movement, didn't say, was just staring at him. But the guy himself apparently took off like lightning, because the two other guys at the camp, my buddy and whoever else was there, noticed he came running, flying back to camp, and never said a word. They knew something was wrong, but he didn't want to talk about it. So, but he said the whole subject of Bigfoot never really dawned on him. All those years, he didn't even think about Bigfoot because he's never seen anything like that. He's never had a good enough experience or encountered for anything to even consider something like that. Because, like I said, this is an individual who knows the woods and knows all the wildlife. He's seen what a lot of wildlife does, what they do, and et cetera, et cetera. But here's a skeptic who is actually starting to lean a little bit more to it. He told me himself, he said, Daniel, I believe there's something out there. He said, I'm not saying it's a Bigfoot, but there's something out there. So, so I like to say he is a believer in something out there, but he's not claiming either way. He's actually been starting to do more of his own research. And like the location where I was at this past weekend, it's where a lot of the activities happen. He's told me stories from things that happened out there to him and his wife in a camper, and that was over 2 years ago. And then the same thing happened to someone else he knew that camped in that area just a few months ago. So, with their campers being pushed or slapped or whatever, but I don't know. It's pretty cool. I mean, I hear a lot of stories from that area. I seen a picture of a trackway that came out of that same very area from last year in 2 or 3 inches of snow. And by the way, I'll be camping there March 24th through the 27th. So I got my buddy from Virginia Beach coming up. Him and his son. We're all going to be camping out there. We're going to be in tents. So I'm hoping something happens. But yeah, I'm gonna bring everything I got and see if we can pick up some kind of evidence, maybe some good, clear photo evidence. I don't know. I've always hoped for it. You never know. It might be a time when you least expect it. but nah, that's the individual I work with. He is a skeptic, and and I think in a lot of sense the way me and him talk, we're kind of close. In a way. Because I like to believe a lot of my logical education comes from him, because he brings up a lot of things that I fail to realize, because I want to keep things logical, because it is easy for, to fall in to the, I guess, being gullible, or not gullible, maybe that's not the right word, falling into fantasy, wishful thinking, you know, because when you see things, you get a certain thing like a foot track. I get excited. I always get excited when I find foot tracks. Like, okay, I know my bear tracks. I study bears, in their tracks. I've seen them different shapes and forms, but I know they're bears. Now, I've seen a lot of double step bear tracks, stuff like that. So when I see a track, I observe it very carefully. Yeah,
Well, I think when it comes to the Bigfoot research thing, I think it's important that people familiarize themselves with the woods, other animals, because it is easy to fool yourself. This could be Bigfoot. Well, it could be, but maybe it's just you don't know what you're looking at. I think that happens.
right. Well, yeah,
I think that
yeah.
happens.
With a lot of people, yeah, I agree with you.
I think it kind of, you said you're a wildlife biologist.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I'm a wildlife biologist, but just you have to familiarize yourself. I had done an investigation into the, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Bridgewater Triangle here in Massachusetts. It's an area,
say it again.
the Bridgewater Triangle. Lauren Coleman,
Oh, I'm not familiar with that. No.
Lauren Coleman had mentioned it in one of his books. It's in like the western part of Massachusetts, and it encompasses like a whole bunch of towns, and there's UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings. There's actually a documentary. I think it's on
Oh, okay.
Destination America Now called America's Bermuda Triangle, and they talk about it. It's
Right.
everything. There's aliens. There's Bigfoot. There's all these ghosts. There's this whole thing, and I was doing an investigation because there had been a sighting report from one of the areas in the Bridgewater Triangle called the Hockabock Swamp, which apparently is supposed to be haunted. There's been Bigfoot sightings in there, ghosts, giant dogs. I mean, there's been everything that paranormal has been sighted in this area. And I had gone out one time
Right.
in the winter time, and there's power lines that go through, and I'm a big proponent of power lines as maybe routes of travel for Bigfoot potentially. And I come across an area where, to me, in the snow, it looked like huge footprints, like 3 feet apart. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, there's nothing really around. Why? What the hell is it? And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's footprints. This is great. I've never found Bigfoot for footprints before. I went to look. It was a bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
It's 4 little dots, like when they land, when they hop. But to
Right.
some people, they would look at that from a distance and go, I'm out here Bigfooting. I saw these. I want to find something Bigfoot related. I'll take one picture from a distance and say they were Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That's why I think I think you have to familiarize yourself, because a lot of times that people go in the woods when they're bigfooting, that they're not all that familiar with the woods, and I'll say that I'm really not. I know some stuff, but they're going out bigfooting, they're gonna find something Bigfoot just because they're bigfooting.
Right.
So I think you have to kind of learn these different things. Are there food sources in the area? Like my thing now is I'm getting into the wild edibles thing. What in any area is edible to humans, which could also be possibly edible to Bigfoot, potentially. That's kind of my thing now. So I can go into an area, because you always hear, that's one of the arguments, there's not enough food sources in an area to support a large primate. Is there though? Maybe there is. Is there? And looking around, there's quite a bit of food sources out there.
Right.
That's why I kind of got into that, and I think people need to, like I said, expand their knowledge of the woods. If they go into the woods 3 times a year bigfooting, I think they're more likely to find something that they're going to claim is Bigfoot that could be something else. It's just because they don't know. I can't fault them for that, but it's just because they don't know.
Right. Yeah. Just real quick. Our the number of viewers are starting to grow. I know a lot of them probably didn't catch the beginning of what I was stating and everything, but um, part of what I wanted to explain, I know we're kind of our discussion leading into talking about, I guess you could say evidence and so forth, but in the beginning of this, I started off explaining about who I was, where I don't have nothing to hide, but the whole Bigfoot and religion thing, we had a discussion on that, how things got brought up earlier, and a topic I was involved in where religion got pulled into it, and I did not intend to bring it in, but just stating a simple thing where I didn't believe in evolution, and of course, no one wanted to respect my opinion on my belief. Then it turned into something different. But anyway, basically what I'm getting at is I'm often misunderstood, and I want people to understand who I am. 'Cause, there's a lot of people still learning who I am. I'm not trying to get popular, but as far as YouTube goes, and if I have people on Facebook who understand and see a lot of my postings, my blogs from my website, and, you know, and I just want people to understand me and where I come from, and I also want to state that if I ever say anything or you see something from me, if you don't understand or you're not sure what I'm saying, please ask me. That's all I'm asking. Please ask me. You don't have to go into a long, drawn out statement about, well, I'm a skeptic, but you didn't have to say this. Well, that's not how I intended it. But so, yeah, if you guys have questions that have viewing, feel free to ask them on the live chat. I'm keeping an eye on the live chat as well while we're talking. So, but yeah.
Well,
So,
the one thing I can say, and I think we had talked about this a little bit in PM, you and I. The one thing that I had noticed when the ECBRO was first starting out on Facebook, and I had seen comments and had conversations with people in different groups, the coalition group and a few other groups, and I noticed you've changed. Let me start out by saying that. I've noticed it's changed quite a bit.
right.
It just seemed like every post was, want to buy a T-shirt?
And that's something else that gets brought up to me.
Buy a
Yeah,
T-shirt?
I was.
I'm like, dude, what this guy is doing is selling that and posting selfies. And there'd be all these girls
Yeah.
looking hot. Love the Kanga hat. I'm like, this dude's looking to meet chicks and he's looking to sell T-shirts. But I've noticed, with all due respect, I've noticed recently that that's changed. Because it literally, I would see like every other post was, want to buy a T-shirt, want to buy a T-shirt, want to buy a T-shirt. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
fund your own thing. Nobody funds my stuff. A lot of these groups, nobody funds it. It's all self-funded. Fund your own shit. But I've noticed over
Right.
time, and I will say that that has changed. And I had said that to
Right.
you. I've seen you since you started, and a lot of that stuff has kind of changed. So I
Right.
think that's good. I
Well,
got to give you credit for that.
Well, as far as the T-shirt fundraiser thing, I know some people like, okay, they didn't mind me sharing it in their groups and stuff like that. Because some people, certain groups set a guideline for that. Well, only post it once a day or once a week, which okay, fine. But it's just the way I was doing the fundraisers, the way I had them set up, where they're only set up for a limited time. You can only have them up to so much time at a, you know,
Yeah.
for a length of period of time, and plus the other thing is, it was the only way I knew how to, put my design or sell a T-shirt that was based off of my group name and with logos on it, and the thing is, if you don't sell the minimum, then no one's going to get what they put into. Like, say if it only had 5, but you need to reach at least 10 to 12 or whatever or more, it's not going to go through, and then whoever did pay into it will get, they'll get refunded. But that's why it seemed like I was pushing it a lot for one thing,
But that being,
but even if it didn't make minimum, I might even what the most I'm going to get out of that is like $100,
yeah.
So
And
I mean,
that being said, when I belonged to NESRA, Northeast Sasquatch Research Association. We had our
right.
Zazzle store. You could buy a coffee mug and a hat, T-shirt, sweatshirt, that sort of thing. I think a lot of groups
Oh
do.
yeah.
Yeah, a little extra money coming in is not a bad thing, believe me. But it just,
Yeah.
like I said, again, all due deference to you, it was just like every third post was buy a T-shirt. Like, dude, he's selling T-shirts and trying to meet chicks. But again, like
Yeah, I mean,
I've noticed that
I got labeled as a profiteer.
and the thing is you see that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People get you having if you're involved in any amount of time in Bigfoot research, you see people come in that are fairly new people, and you categorize them. Oh, this guy wants to be famous. He wants to be on Finding Bigfoot in the worst possible way. Or this guy's trying to make a little extra money in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
But to me, like, well, just see how they go. If they're here for 2 years and they don't sell enough T-shirts, they'll move on and go on to the UFO community or the Chupacabra researchers. But seeing as that you're still after what 5, 6 years, how long you been involved? 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, something.
As far as on social media for about 5, at least 5 years, the minimum. Yeah.
Oh,
At least 5.
and I watch your posts, and I haven't seen a "Hey, buy my T-shirt" post in quite a while.
Yeah.
It's good because, like I said, when you're involved long enough, you see everything. People
Yeah.
just want to be like with the whole Melba Ketchum thing. Personally, I think she just wants to be famous. She wants to be.
And that, I mean, yeah, I believe a big part of that too. I agree with that. But then again, you got to be careful. Her followers will attack you. I've been attacked by her followers. But I'm not worried about that because
to me, I don't really care.
a lot of it I don't believe because from other research that I've done and then that was revealed. But at the same time, I believe maybe she is a part of it. I believe she has a passion that she's trying to be serious about it. But the thing is, the way I look at it and the way things are broke down to me scientifically, she did it wrong. Or the best way to say it was incomplete, but also in error. Because
Yeah.
with especially the way Dr. Haskell Hart alone, apart from what Todd Disotell said, Dr. Haskell Hart broke it down because she didn't do them correctly. But then everyone's saying, well, she sent them off to these other labs. Well, none of these other people, no one's speaking on it. Her co-authors, no one wants to speak, or none of her co-authors could be found. No one wants to speak on what she did because they don't want to have nothing to do with it. But that's
No,
a whole different thing.
I can't blame him. I can't blame him for that. Because, like I said, I think she wants to kind of be somebody in something, and this is hers. She's like, geez, I got a lot of notice. I got a lot of Facebook messages after I was on that first documentary. Maybe if I do a little more, I'll get a little more notoriety and a little more fame, I guess you could say, in a way. So right away, I have to be kind of circumspect on what everything she does, because I think that's her motivation.
Right. Yeah.
It's not proving anything. It's how much can I get out of this for myself, unfortunately.
Right.
Hey, change the subject a minute. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't hear y'all talk very much about a certain doctor on here, and I want to ask your opinion. What do you think about Dr. Esteban? I can't pronounce his last name very well. Sarieto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an anthropologist. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do y'all think of him?
I think he's a pretty cool guy. I think he's pretty legit. He doesn't try to make bold, blunt claims like some other people do. I mean, nothing I heard from him.
He was involved in this cast, wasn't he? What were they found when they made the cast? Was supposed to be one laying on its side of a squash laying on its side, grabbing an apple or something. Wasn't he involved in that?
The Skookum cast, yeah. I think part of the problem with the Skookum cast thing is that he was involved, Meldrum was involved, a few other people were involved. I think what the problem with that is that I don't think he was one of those ones that's like, hey, I can get some fame out of this. But I think he got involved, and I think overstepped. And when all these different alternatives of what it could actually have been beside a Bigfoot laying on its side, reaching for fruit, I think he kind of wandered away from the whole, because I haven't heard him really being involved in really very much anymore.
Right.
So I think he kind of said, yeah, this isn't for me.
I would love to go spend a week up at that cabin up there on Snow Grove Lake that they went to up there, that Monster Quest did that expedition at.
You talking about in Alaska?
Yeah.
Up in Canada.
Oh, Canada. There was one in Alaska, the cabin on the lake. Yeah. Oh, I thought that was Alaska.
No, it was up in Canada. It's Snow Grove. I think it's called Snow Grove. Yeah. Snow Grove Lake.
That was the one where they had the bear board that they used to keep bears in cabins, and they tested the DNA and everything. And Meldrum was involved with that one too, and yeah, because I know when I was involved actually with Nesra, we had talked about renting that cabin for like a 3-day weekend or something. But they want a lot of money for that. They want a lot of money for that.
I'd love to go up there for about a week just to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, viewers, are you guys still seeing this? Because I know I had a couple people message me saying that it looked like we froze. Well, one of the viewers said they lost the feed or something, but no, we didn't have no problems on our end. We're still alive.
Still good here.
So, yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it was a technical issue on their part, or maybe it was Google. I don't know. That's weird, but yeah. Yeah, Donald Redley said Lori lost it here too. So I don't know. That's weird. I think it might be a storm in here. I don't know. It did storm yesterday. I don't know what's going on out right now in some areas, but could be a network issue with some areas. But I don't know. So yeah, but I'm sure a lot of people are expecting to tune in just to see or hear what might be said Saturday night, which I feel like we've been talking more about these different topics that I plan on talking about this weekend throughout the week. Between yesterday and today, and because it's actually been getting pretty good, conversations and discussions. I think, you know, who knows? Maybe I'll kind of change the title of the subject for Saturday night. Leave it to another open discussion. But there was a few other notes I wrote down. Uh, I have another page I wrote down with a few things, you know, which I'll say that I think I might save this for Saturday night. Part of it's about the skeptics versus non-believers, believers versus knowers. The ones who know. Talk about researchers in general. And a lot of this stuff I have written down is things that we've actually spoken and discussed on in other past podcasts and stuff. So, but yeah. But yeah, as far as viewers, if you guys have questions, if there's anything you're curious about, because basically, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I'm just trying to get people to know me and understand me, and um, you know, like I stated earlier, I do not have no degree in any form of science whatsoever. I graduated back in 1998, and I have a high school diploma. Um, I'm just like anybody else in the world. I'm no one special. Um, but what I do with my research. I have a strong passion, and I do take it seriously. But at the same time, I do try to have fun with it. And to clear another thing up, no, I'm not in it to make money. You know, but as serious as I am involved in it, I've gone to the point where I have groups, and people that want to join in and be a part of what I've started, and which I think is the most amazing thing. I've tried to, ask people, hey, would you be curious in starting a group and represent who we are? And, I've had people want to, do that. A good example is the herds. Um, but, um, they get out when they can. I mean, they're a busy family, and just like a lot of other people who are involved in doing the Bigfoot research, we all have lives, we all have jobs and families, and so forth. Um, Me personally, I'm a single father. I mean, my daughter's 14 years old. I've had custody ever since she was 3 months old. Um, you know, no, it hasn't been an easy road, but not everybody, has the help that I've had. I've had the help of my parents, which has been a major blessing. You know, she's like I said, she's 14. She'll be 15 here in June, and she's been out. She's not involved as much as I am in it. I mean, she does get out there with me, and she's actually pretty good. She's like a natural out in the field. She's very observant. She hears things and points things out to me that I overlook, and I feel like I'm very observant. I usually see things and pick up on things pretty well. Um, but yeah, she's been pretty awesome out in the woods. Um,
Well,
yeah, but like I said, I'm no one special. I mean, I'm your average human being. So
well, if I can just say, because I've had discussions with people that wanted to get involved in Bigfoot research,
right.
and my whole thing is that I think you need to ask yourself a question when you first get started. Do you want to know for yourself, just to know for yourself if they exist? That's me. Or do you want to try to prove it to the world at large? Now, if
Well,
you want to know for yourself, it's so much cheaper. You don't need all sorts of equipment. Basically, just go camping in an area that you think might provide you a chance to see something. But if you want to know, if you want to prove it to the world at large, then you have to get into the audio and the video and the pictures and all that other stuff. But to me,
exactly.
if you're going to do that, no, I want to get good video to show it to the world. I want it to be on CNN. Then buy a good video camera. Don't depend on the cell phone camera, the camera in your cell phone. because I know people that are like that they want to try to get good video. What camera do you have? The one on my cell phone. Well, you're not going to get good video on the one on your cell phone. I don't have any money. Then just know for you, like I've said to people before. To me, I just want to know for myself. I had a good up close experience. I know what I'm looking at. I know it's not a dude in a suit. I'd probably just disappear from the whole Bigfoot community and go off and find another hobby doing something else.
Yeah.
Looking for
I mean,
chupacabra or something. I don't know.
right. Yeah, I mean, as far as well, what got me involved, and I've shared this before, even in a blog that's posted on my website. Part of what got me involved was, the curiosity. And when I first, I guess the subject of Bigfoot, I guess even from a young kid, it's nothing that really stuck with me. It was kind of like one of those things I knew of, but it was in the back of my mind, so it wasn't nothing you really thought of to even think about nothing. Because I played out in the woods a lot when I was a kid. My father always took me hunting out in the woods, and but it wasn't up till you know just so many years ago where I seen the Patterson footage, and I started looking more into it. And when I saw the work that Bill Munns did with it, and then the other work, the other uh, uh, I can't forgive my lack of knowledge of what they were, but there's other technology and studies that have been put into it, and simple analyzing, where they can't they can't prove it to be human at all, and the thing is that there got me involved where I wanted to start looking into it. I wanted to start doing my own research, and then when I learned that social media like Facebook, you know, there was groups in Facebook that uh, that Bigfoot groups and stuff. I started getting involved with social media, and then I started seeing all these theories floating around, and all these people said this about Bigfoot. People said, okay, well, some of the theories I automatically dismissed as far as the cloaking and all this magical, mythical, fantasy stuff. But some of the other theories that seemed to me logical, I wanted to learn, well, is there truth to this? And, I guess when you could say I started into this, I was a passionate skeptic. And then when I started doing my own field observations, I started taking notice of certain things. And then it really struck on me when I started finding tracks on my own. Because before being out in the woods, as much as I used to be out in the woods, like just like all these hunters and hikers that say that I'm out in the woods all the time, I don't see nothing. The thing is, they're not looking, and I wasn't either. But my eyes got open, and a certain awareness and more of alertness kind of struck me, and that's where I started observing and noticing and finding more. And the more and more I spent time in the woods is when I started I started to experience things. I don't have a lot of experiences, but I have there's other things that happen to me in the woods that I can't explain any otherwise logical. um, I've experienced almost every known animal, and I've observed quite a few bears in the woods. Plenty of white-tailed deer. I've walked up on a lot of deer, and you know, um, you know, so I'm I'm very well aware of all the known animals in the forest, especially in the areas I go into. I know what's there. You're not going to see them all the time, but they're there. Um, but yeah, the whole subject of Bigfoot, it turned into believing, and then it went into knowing. Um, and then as far as me doing what I did, I wanted to start sharing what I found, and then I started doing studies. I became more than your typical go out in the woods and look for Bigfoot type person. I became someone who wanted to learn. So I started reading. I started doing studies. I wanted to look into where am I going to get my best knowledge at, is what I was trying to think. I started looking in various areas, and so when I guess you could say when I felt more into Bigfoot being a possible primate related to our known primates, that's the field I started to look into. I started reading up more about apes and monkeys and etc. Well, when I started looking and learning more about them, I started learning more about our known wildlife, because if we're going to try to find or research something that's not acknowledged or known to science, well, then we got to start learning where on the things that we should be knowing, like our known wildlife, our own native species that is acknowledged. So, to make a long story short, my research became a passion. Then it became something I wanted to start sharing. As I learned, I wanted to teach as well. So the little things like this, like when I got questions as far as, well, what kind of teacher are you? Because I in my on the ECBRO fan page, on subcategories that you list on there, yeah, I originally had nonprofit, and since everybody was giving me a heck about being nonprofit, because I'm not legally documented as a nonprofit organization, I changed it. I put teacher. Okay, now people questioning that. Really? Come on. I think people get a little out of hand on some areas. But as far as what I do, I am teaching people. I am teaching as I learn, and I don't try to throw bogus claims out there like a lot of people do. I try to pinpoint, and try to share things at a logical sense. I try to think like a skeptic in a lot of things. I've learned to become more objective on a lot of things. And when I get objective to people, I don't want them to get the wrong idea. I try to present my objective point of view in a friendly manner, if that makes any sense. But so, but
Well, you just got to realize the sad thing is that these days, whenever you say anything, you have to always be thinking, how could somebody take this?
right.
How could they twist this into something I didn't mean? And I think that's where a lot of the problems lie. He said this is what he means. And I think that's when a lot of people get called on things.
Yeah. Yeah, see, little things like that, that you just explained, or things I fail to realize or think about, before I say anything. And most of the time, when I post something, before I post it to publish it, I try to reread what I wrote. And sometimes I do fail to do that. And, sometimes I have to go back under and edit it because either I left something out or I misspelled something, not realizing it. And, but yeah, I try to be careful how I do word things, because I don't always realize that, people are going to take it, or like you said, or maybe twist it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because when people question me or say something negative about something, I say, how are they? I don't understand sometimes. I was like, am I saying something wrong here? And, I caution, when somebody says something, I start questioning myself. I said, what am I doing wrong? And then on the other hand, I feel like I'm doing fine, because a lot of people say, don't worry about it. Let them be. Which I've learned to become more. Let people just be the way they are. And I've actually removed myself from groups. I've blocked people. You know, and but at the same time, I try to hang on to certain groups that are negative and these different objective people, because I've actually learned from some of them. You know, I've learned to look into and consider other possibilities. Um, like I said, I don't expect everybody to agree or believe in what I share. I'm not gonna, you know, try to force anything on anybody either. And if I ever get photo evidence of what I believe will be a Bigfoot, I hope it is clear enough. And I hope the footage is, no footage. I know, I don't care how clear or blurry it's going to be or whatever. No footage is never going to be good enough for anybody. I realize that. But if I do, I am going to share it, and I hope, you know, I think if I do, I mean, people should believe what I post, because I'm somebody who speaks up against hoaxing and all that, because there's danger behind hoaxing, and people don't realize that. People have been killed by hoaxing. I mean, accidentally.
Yeah.
People running out in the middle of the road in Bigfoot costume, they get ran over. That's actually true stuff. And you don't know. You might have some crazy wacko out in the woods. If they see something, if you're in a costume or pulling a hoax, you know, people carry guns these days, and if they feel threatened, they might shoot to defend themselves. Or you might have a Justin Smaha out in the woods that wants to shoot to prove something. You know. But nah, if I post something, I'm gonna make sure it's good enough. But I'm not gonna post pictures and say, look, I got a big. I've posted a lot of my field videos. A lot of my field videos of me showing where I'm at, what I'm looking at. Little things like, for example, I might point out different structures and show how how this tree's twisted around this tree and combined with this one. Or if I see something that looks like a cave, like in one of my last videos, I thought it was a cave. I was way down on the bottom of this steep ridge. I zoomed in on it with my camcorder. When I wanted to get a better look at it, I climbed that steep ridge just to see what it was, because I mean, I put in effort to find out what something is. I try to anyway. Sometimes I fail to do that sometimes, but if I see something, if I'm able to reach that point, I'll find a way to get there, regardless if it's physical or through philosophy or whatnot. Um,
Well, that's the difference between being a researcher and being an enthusiast.
right.
So I've seen pictures online, not taken by myself, by other people, and have sent them out to like arborists and different wildlife people and say, what do you think could cause this? They said a microburst could cause that. Trees twisted with the trunks all twisted, and
Yeah.
it's a small little, well, I don't want to say like a tornado, but a microburst, a little downdraft of air that in a twisting motion that could cause the tree to twist, and if it had a defect in the trunk, that's what you would get. Never
Yeah.
heard about that before. Now I know. So if somebody shows a picture, I'd say, well, it could be a microburst. A what? That's why I think where the term researcher comes into play. You have
Right.
to be a researcher and not just, I'm going out Bigfooting 3 times a year and everything I find is going to be Bigfoot.
Right. Right.
To yourself or anybody. And then they wonder, why are people criticizing me? Why are they climbing on me like this? Because
Hmm.
it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. You're just
Right.
coming to that conclusion. You're not a researcher. You're a fan of Bigfoot.
Right.
The researcher, it requires research.
Right. I mean, yeah. Hold on, I lost my train of thought on it. Something you were saying, I was agreeing with, and it made me think of something.
Oh,
Hmm.
sorry about that.
Oh, no, 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 no. I got it. No, you talking about all these tree structures and stuff. Well, I haven't uploaded yet, but I got it's still on the SD card in my camcorder. I have all these different clippings, and when I was out in the woods this past weekend, when I had my backpack off, I was taking a break, and I just looking around in the woods, and something caught my attention. And just from looking at it, I knew exactly how it formed. It was this tree, and I made a video of it as I was speaking, and explaining it. And I think it was a good example, a good point that I made. And it was a tree. You could see how a big part of it split off, like it might have got struck by lightning. But another part of the tree where it came over and broke as it came down, it had a massive twist to it. It looked like it literally got twisted around, and it was slightly up on a bank, going up on a hill. But this was a good point. The example I was trying to, or what I was trying to explain was the weight and momentum and the angle when a tree is top heavy, and when it comes down, it's not going to come. Not every tree is going to come straight down and have a simple bend. The way it looked like it started to fall, the weight was going where downhill, which caused it the cause of the twist formation. And and even on level ground where you see a lot of trees that are twisted, now some of them, you know, depending on the twist, some of them, if they're high up in the air and they have a good twist, Some of them I do like to believe, and this is something the gentleman I was speaking about earlier, the coworker who was a skeptic. He said, well, one thing, when bears are playing around in trees, bears go up in trees a lot. Sometimes they do climb on a lot of smaller trees and push and bend. Well, sometimes when they're up there, and if the tree comes down from their weight, you know, depends on how much of a fall they have, that tree will have enough time from, as it's coming down, from the weight of that bear to come around and almost twist in an angle, and it will cause that tree to have the fibers of the tree to be, formed in that twist, and little things like that, I started looking more in, and that's what I was explaining in my video with that big tree. It was probably a good 8 inches round or bigger, maybe a little bigger, but it had a big twist in it, and it was pretty obvious for where that twist came from. I ain't gonna say, you know, there's people in the Bigfoot community that'll say, well, man, that must have been like a 20-foot squash that did that. I've seen people like that in the community.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but
There was somebody back about, I want to say, 8 or 10 years ago on the Bigfoot forums that did that exact thing. They came in as a skeptic, and
right,
they mentioned it later, and they were looking in, they explained it later and said that I see all these things about tree twists and tree breaks and how they're Bigfoot. They went out and created on their own by hand 2 or 3 breaks. Look, I got a Bigfoot living here. This is what happened. And there was so many people that going, oh yeah, that's exactly what that is. That's a Bigfoot that did that. I have those.
right.
I find those all the time. And then the guy came out and said, look, I created this by myself. I did this myself. It's not a Bigfoot. I made it. And he got so much hate for that because people fell for it.
Oh yeah,
And he said, no, I created that. No, you didn't. It had to be. No, I did. I have video. I'll show you. I'll post it on YouTube of me creating these things and these structures. You're all jumping into, oh my God, it has to be Bigfoot. I created these myself. So,
yeah.
no matter what you show, people are going to go, oh my God, yes, it's a Bigfoot. So I think that there's a lesson to be learned there, that you have to be careful. You have to, when in doubt, I've always said, when in doubt, throw it out.
Right. Well, like one of my other previous videos that I posted, which it's listed on my YouTube channel. I titled it "Tracks and Structures" or "Structures and Tracks," vice versa, whatever. But throughout the video, it starts off where I'm standing in the field, and then my next clipping is I've gone further in and I come across a interesting structure or formation, trees that are grown there, and some of them are bent over, snapped, twisted, but also kind of twisted and combined with other trees, and if you listen to me in the video, I do not claim bluntly that it was a Bigfoot. You'll hear me asking, is this the work of a bear? Because when you see trees that are bent over and twisted, weather didn't just naturally twist those there's certain types of trees where you can rule out weather didn't do them, but there was something that did it. Um, I know I try to think and lean towards bears a lot of times because in the areas I go and I know bears live there. And right in the same area, like I was standing in the middle of this formation, and I'm looking down. I saw a bear track there, okay, and then I see scat, so I know a bear's been there, but did a bear do that? Is questions I throw out there, and so I try to educate people with a thought of, okay, well, this may not have been done by Bigfoot. So when they see these other videos of people posting stuff, that everyone automatically assumes this is Bigfoot work. I'm someone who said, well, I question everything myself too. When I find stuff. So I try to be careful how I present it as well, because some of the formations or structures I find are pretty interesting, and they do get me excited because there's certain ones that do stand out. Like I saw one. It's on my new video that I haven't uploaded yet, but it's a natural growth of the thorns, and also it's combined with a tree that's broke, and there's other limbs that are on top of it, which logically explained, they fall from the other dead limbs from above them. But the way it looks, it's interesting because it has a shelter type roof on it, and there's there's a clearing underneath where something could take shelter under, out of the away from the elements. So I mean, it could be just natural, but because bears use a lot of natural, you know, debris, timber, fallen trees, etc. Bears don't always go in dens. They use a lot of down timber and other natural formations. But yeah, I share stuff like that because I find it interesting.
Well, with a
So
lot of things like those, when people call them shelters,
right,
you look at the pictures or the video, like, would you shelter under that? It's 4 tree branches. What is that
right,
shelter you from? I want to get out of the rain. I'm going to pull over 3 tree branches. From So a Bigfoot's going to spend time, when they're all about staying hidden, pull 4 tree branches over that might save you from 3 raindrops. So
right. I mean,
really? I mean, if that's a shelter, you'd think living out in the woods all these years, they would have a better idea of what a rudimentary debris shelter would be.
yeah,
That's what they're building? Oh, they're wicked smart. And this is what they build? If I was to build a shelter for myself, it would be one where I could get in out of the rain and out of the weather, not 3
right.
branches and call it, okay, that's cool, I'm out of the rain. Dude, it's 3 tree branches. That's not going to cover you from anything.
Right. I mean, like, all right, if you ever notice if you watch any of my videos where I say, okay, this is a shelter-like structure, which it's a structure formation that has a almost like a roof hovering, and where there's a clearing where you can get underneath or get into. There's been a few things I found like that, like one in particular. It definitely, like with the one I just explained, it looked like it was a combination. It looked like it was something it was natural growth there from the thorns and the way they grew hovering over. But like I said, there was other trees added to it underneath, like on the side, almost like building a wall. But um, and then in a whole totally different area, almost an hour away, I found this which looked like it was a hut. It was formed from a tree, a part of a broken tree, but there was other debris and limbs, like literally like put on top. Could they have fallen from another tree? Possibly yes, but um, little things like that. And other things I find interesting is when you get a cluster of tree limbs stacked up, almost going around another tree, and I take notice of them, and I look at the trees around. I look at the trees that they're leaning on, and it's okay. Well, these here definitely belong to a tree like this. It comes from the same type of tree. Then it's the other ones that stand out that, okay, these trees don't belong around here. I don't see, like, for example, you got maple trees, oak trees, then you got pine, cedar, combination of all these. And it's the ones that are not around where, okay, they got put here, but what is this, or what's this for? There's weird things I find on the woods that, like, kind of make you scratch your head. Maybe somebody's done it. For what reason? It's still unexplained. Like, why would somebody do something like this? What's it for? It don't seem like it's serving no purpose. Little things like that. I come across, and I question and let other people view them, and definitely get people to share their own thoughts and opinions. So, but I don't know. It's a lot of mysterious things out there, that's for sure.
Oh, there are. I've seen a few odd things in the woods, heard some odd things in the woods. I think if you spend enough time in the woods, you're going to.
Oh, yeah.
But again, it's just my thing that if you're out Bigfooting and you find something odd in the woods, it's Bigfoot.
Yep.
Think about everything else before you think Bigfoot. And that's why you have to educate yourself. Because I've heard people say, I know every sound and every animal in the woods. I
Right.
really doubt you know every sound and every animal in the woods. I don't think really anybody does.
Well, that brings up the gentleman I work with again. The skeptic. He made a good point about something because all the main common vocalizations from all the main animals that are in a woods that we're familiar with. There's other noises that they put out that are not common that they don't always use, like
Exactly.
yeah, like a coyote. We hear them yip, bark, and howl, but yet there's other noises that their vocals could put out that
Yep.
do not sound like it's originated from them. I
Yep.
mean,
And
stuff like that.
that's why I think you have to educate yourself, because people think when they first go squatching, they think dogs just go woof, cats just say meow.
Right.
They don't. They make all. I asked somebody one time on one of my expeditions I was on. They said, "Well, no, it has to be a Bigfoot because he knows every sound that every animal makes in the woods." I'm like, okay, have him do the. What does it sound like when a female deer is giving birth? What is that? So what sounds does she make? And he said, oh, I don't know. Okay, so you don't know every sound in the woods then.
Right.
Can't say that. It's just too many people that get out in the woods. They're like the master of the woods and they know everything that goes on. And that's where the problem lies, because people think I can't explain it, so it has to be Bigfoot. Maybe you
Exactly.
just know what it is. It is the simplest explanation. My thing, and I've said this to people, maybe you just don't know what it is that did it.
Right, and a lot of people assume and just kind of take that assumption and run with it.
Assume with not enough knowledge, exactly. And I'm not saying I have all the knowledge. I don't. Like I said, I've heard some odd things in the woods, and like, I don't know what the hell that is. I've been out hunting. I don't know what the hell made that noise. If I was out squatching, some people would say, well, it had to be Bigfoot because it doesn't sound like a raccoon or a deer or a coyote or a bear. Well, there's a lot of fisher cats, there's a lot of mountain lions, there's a lot of other animals in the woods.
Yeah.
That's why, again, like I said, you have to educate yourself. Somebody comes home with a piece of audio tape, and I've seen this happen a bunch of times, where somebody comes home with some audio, and they're like, I don't know what this is. It's probably a Bigfoot.
Right.
And you'll go find a recording online somewhere and say, doesn't this sound pretty much exactly like this recording? It's a coyote. No, coyotes only go yip, 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 and they howl. That's all the only sounds they make. No, they don't. I've heard crows. Where I work, I have the crows that apparently live in the woods behind my shop. They make all different sorts of noises besides just the regular, what you know and I know as crow noises. They make all sorts of sounds. Just go online and search crow noises. They make all different sorts of noises.
Right. Oh yeah. Um, you know, I ain't gonna lie, there's an animal too. Like for example, you mentioned fisher cat. Now, we have fisher cats in our woods. They're very rare. I've actually seen one time and it ran across the road. That sucker was fast. Now, one thing, I'm not familiar with their sounds. That's one of the ones I know right offhand. Whatever sounds or vocalizations they do, I'll have to actually look that up because I never really thought about that one before. But I know we have them. Yeah, I'm not familiar with what their sounds are. And the other thing, a lot of different birds, owls. I think owls is the biggest one. I'm familiar with a lot of owl sounds. And there's some sounds I've heard out in the woods which, from every sound I've heard from an owl, didn't sound like an owl. But, if you think logically, you don't know if that could be an owl, Like one example, my area compared to Fred's area, I've heard owls, barred owls in both areas. Now, in my area where I camp, there's a lot more mountains and ridges and, hollows and stuff. I've heard one owl. At first, I was slightly puzzled when I first started hearing it. Till I listened carefully. I said, oh, wow. That's an owl, but it's like long ways off. Like really far. and it had a very hard, loud bass to it. But you could tell it was far away, but the vocalizations it was putting out was bouncing off the hills and the ridges around there. Because where I go, there's a lot of high ground and very little low ground.
Yeah.
You got ridges and hollows all through that place. Vocalizations, some areas you can yell and you won't get an echo. In other areas, you'll hear your echo go on. I mean, that's just how it is. But yeah, the bass of that owl, it didn't sound nothing like an owl till I started listening. And it's like, wow. It's like it wasn't like your typical barred owl that you could hear. Some barred owls actually have a sharp tone. I've heard some of them up close, and they sound like real deep. You know. But yeah, there's so many like you said, there's so many different sounds that we don't hear on a normal basis of these different animals. Because some people live around the woods, but some of us don't always get to the woods to really spend that you know dedicated time like we like to. But
You just can't jump to that conclusion. I was on a Nestor expedition, and we had something. I'm still saying it was some sort of cat coming really close to camp. Um, Unfortunately, we never got any audio of it. It was raining that night, and a couple of guys, me and myself, and another researcher had gone out. He had his audio recording equipment set up, but he shut everything down because all you could hear was rain falling. So we threw it in. We went back to camp. We were sitting, and something came close into camp. And one of the guys, or actually a couple of the guys, were ready to come back home and say we had a Bigfoot come into camp, or come close by camp. And one of the guys was to say, well, he's lived here in New York his whole life. He knows every sound in the woods. He doesn't know what it is. It has to be a Bigfoot.
right.
I said, yeah, I think it was something cat. I don't know if it was a mountain lion. I've never heard a mountain lion. Never seen one. Never heard a bear. Never seen one. But I'm thinking it sounded cat. And maybe I was completely wrong. But to me, it sounded something felid. I wasn't really sure. But those couple of guys, they were ready to come home and say we had a Bigfoot coming close to camp. I was ready to. I was to say that no, I don't think we should say that. We have no audio of it. None of us are sure amongst the 5 or 6 of us of what it was, so we should just say nothing.
Yeah, I think the biggest assumption I ever. Hold on, I'm getting feedback again. I don't know. Yeah, when I hear myself talk, it's kind of weird. Okay. All right, this is something I've shared. This is an experience I've had, and I've shared this on a few different occasions. Um, I was at my camp, and I know a lot of people probably familiar with this or recall me sharing this. Um, but yeah, there was one night I was at camp by myself. It was about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I walk out from camp out to the road. I have a spotlight in my hand. Get out to the middle of the road. Well, first of all, keep in mind my spotlight was not turned on. I walked out into the middle of the road, pretty much blind. Got to the middle of the road, decided to turn my spotlight on. Started shining it in the woods. Automatically to my left, I hear a deer run off. Automatically, okay, I thought it was cool. But right after I hear the deer run off, over to my right, something very large and heavy and definitely flat-footed started stepping away, walking away. Very large. You could hear from every sound of the step it had a loud thump and crash. It wasn't a slow walk, but it wasn't a fast walk either. It was kind of a steady walk away. But whatever it was that was large and heavy walking away definitely had me walking back towards camp with my back facing camp and the spotlight shining towards the woods. Whatever it was, I don't think it was coming towards me. I think it was trying to get away from me, whatever it was. But from my observations, from hearing bear run off or go off, their footsteps are actually a lot quieter. Even some of the big ones. You'll hear them at first when they first start to run off. But whatever this was, now I could be wrong, but from my judgment of the hearing of the steps, it was on 2 feet. That I mean, like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty familiar with, on the most part, a quadruped, deer, bear, you know. Um, Now, if this was a bear on 2 feet, I think the steps would have been not so heavy. I mean, unless they were a massive sized bear that could walk, because right in that patch of woods where I was hearing it, there is flat ground in there, but a lot of it's kind of up and down in there. But so I don't know. Whatever it was very large and very heavy, and definitely had me on edge because I wasn't armed. It was exciting, but um, I've had other experiences out in the woods, nothing major, more or less vocalizations. I love hearing vocalizations. I get excited hearing coyotes go off or hearing owls nearby because just being out in nature, hearing what you could identify is still exciting because the forest is alive. You know, but I don't know. I've heard other things I couldn't explain. I mean, doesn't mean they were Bigfoot, but there were things I couldn't explain that sounded mysterious, and I try to look up different sounds. I know Fred said he has. Like there was one that me and Fred experienced together. Um, and from what we heard, I looked up different sounds, of different bear cub sounds and stuff like that. It was nowhere near none of the ones I've listened to, but so I mean, I want to rule out it was a bear cub, because the sounds of the bear cubs I've heard, the cries and the moans wasn't like the moaning vocalization that we were hearing that wasn't far off from us, But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what other animal that could have been. Maybe it was a deer making a weird sound that I never heard before, but I don't know. It was different. It was definitely different. So.
Well, I guess you could say Bigfoot experience was Nesra had been contacted by Monster Quest to do an episode.
Okay. Yeah.
It's called Bigfoot in New York. If you want to check it out on YouTube, I'm in it for like a half a second. I am actually
Hey, wait, I might have seen that one before. Wait a minute. That ain't the one with
Steve Culls.
Yes, I did see that one. Yep,
Yeah.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
My axe. They show at the beginning. They show like a long shot of like an axe. That's my axe. My axe is actually in it more than I am, but which is fine. I wasn't on it to be on television. I just thought to see how they do a television show, but in that they actually show one of the guys from Nesra does vocalizations himself, not audio recorded by him, himself with his own voice. And he mentions that I'm going to do a call. I'm sitting up off on a hill, off in the woods, and he mentions that he's going to do a call in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's on the radio. I'm doing a call in 5 seconds. About 2 seconds later, I hear this loud, wow, comparatively loud, way off in the distance, this howl, moan sort of thing. And then about 3 or 4 seconds later, the guy from Nesra does his call, and to me they sounded identical. And that was the only one where I've ever went, geez, I don't think anybody knows we're here, so I don't think anybody's faking us. But yet, way off. I mean, it had to be a half a mile away, way off in the distance. Sounded exactly like the guy from Nesra when he did his call, just like a moan, howl sort of thing. But if you get a chance to check out that video on YouTube, like I said, it's called Bigfoot in New York.
Okay, but on that could you hear the vocalization on the video?
You can't hear the vocalization that we hear.
Oh, okay.
You can hear the guy's name was Hollywood. That's his nickname, Hollywood. But you can actually hear Steve Cull say, "How many times did you call?" And they said, "Oh, just the once." He goes, "Oh, because we heard one like 2 seconds after your last radio transmission when you said you were going to do a call."
Mm.
He heard it. 3 or 4 other people heard it. Like I said, it was way. I mean, it had to be a good 200 yards off. You could barely hear it, but this loud, like moaning howl sort of thing. And then Hollywood, who was probably more than maybe 50 yards away from me, does his thing. And I'm like, man, those almost sounded identical. So that was my only real maybe, as I call it. It just seems kind of odd that, like I said, I don't think anybody knew that we were there. I don't think anybody was messing with us. So that was, like I said, one of my only really, geez, maybe? Is this possible? Perhaps? So, like I said, if you get a chance to watch it, it's a pretty good show. You know, I'm not really in it that much, which is fine. But, yeah, if you get a chance to check it out, it's called Bigfoot in New York, the Monster Quest episode.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. You know, because I don't know. Have you ever heard any of us talk about the experience that we had? There was 6 of us um, who actually had, which undoubtedly we've had an encounter. Um, you know, this happened back in May 3rd, exactly on May 3rd of 2014, and it was during one of our E.C.B.R.O expeditions, and it was out of my area where I spend a lot of my time in. Well, this was actually probably one of the first official experiences I actually had. Um, we were about a little over a mile away from where we set up camp. We went down to the main lake. We got down there just before it was getting dark, and we paired up in twos. You know, we had an older couple with us. They stayed. They stayed at the beginning of the dock. You know, well, at the beginning of the lake, there was like a little mini peninsula that goes out onto the water. There's a bench there, so they stayed there at the bench. And Tracy Arnold and his son, they came up a couple piers up, and me and Cliff Stanley, we're up at the next little pier or dock, whatever you want to call it, and you know, between me and Tracy, you know, we both have our parabolic mics, and all 3 of us, we all got radio communication, and it was pretty quiet. And then, you know, I started listening. There's a ridge up behind us. It goes way up, and I'm starting to listen, and I was like, wow, I'm like hearing like movement, and the movement I'm hearing, it sounded pretty heavy because you could hear tree limbs or, you know, snapping on the ground from whatever was walking up there. So I was like, I radioed down to Tracy. I said, Tracy, I got movement up behind us here. So he starts listening with his mic, and he was like, I'm hearing it too. I said, whatever it is, it's either you got something there too, or it's moving down your way, you know. And I don't know. At one point, I didn't realize towards later on, but his son got scared or something. You know, supposedly they up on the ridge behind them, they got a set of eye shine that kind of definitely put a fright in, you know, in Elijah. Elijah at the time was, I think he was only, I want to say he was about, I don't know, 13 maybe at the time. I could be wrong. I don't know. But so anyway, after doing that, the lady, the couple that were down at the on the one end of the lake, I radioed to them, and I told her, I said, "Hey, Kimmy," I said, "how about you give off one of your vocalizations?" You know, because you know she did it pretty good, and so I wanted to, you know, we were in a perfect place where any sound would carry, you know, because we're all surrounded by at a lake, and you got nothing but hollows and, you know, all around the lake in the mountains. So she gives it off, and I mean, you could hear a slight echo after she gave it off. And, well, 10, 15 seconds later, we hear a return response that was very similar to what she did. It was very close to it. Um, and it wasn't an echo, because the echo died out after the first little slight tone we heard of echo after she gave it off, because you could hear it. We heard the echo, but this was like a good 10, 15 seconds afterwards. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Cliff Stanley got that on his audio, because he kept his audio recording the whole time we were out. And but after all that activity happened, we all regrouped, and at the point we were down there for quite a while. And here it is. It was midnight, and I was like, all right, we're all gonna head back towards camp. And the dirt gravel road leaving out from the lake headed back out to the other road that we had to get to. That's where we were headed out, and we were taking our time walking, being nonchalant, talking as we were walking, and real close to us on the one side of the road, it was like, we catch eye shine. I was like, hey, that's a nice sized deer. We've seen deer on the one side of the road, and I'm kind of walking up ahead of everybody, and it gets to the point where I'm looking over and I see something. My headlamp's reflecting something, and what I'm seeing is something very large, yellow, glowing, amber-looking eye shine. Well, at first I didn't realize it was eye shine, and I thought it was my headlamp, because on some trees you have these little yellow metal reflectors, and well, they're little signs, and that's at first is what I thought, and then I'm staring at it, and all of a sudden it blinks. I said, "What the heck?" I look behind me. I said, "Tracy, get up here." I said, "I got eye shine right here." The first thought I came across, is that a mountain lion? Because in that same area, I've had, recently, up to like 6 months ago, I had one cross the road on me, but I knew they were in that area, and that's the first thing I thought was, oh my goodness, is that a mountain lion, or whatever. And then everyone else comes up. Tracy's like, guys, come up here. We got something up here. And of course, that's all you could see. It was so dark, even with our headlamp, you can't make nothing out but the eye shine reflecting off our lamps. And so we all get up there, and whatever that subject was, it was small, and because I didn't realize at the time, but the road we were on set up over 5 feet higher than where the ground dropped off the side of the road until it leveled off. Well, we get up there, we're staring over into the woods, looking at trying to see what we found, what we were seeing, and we see it. It's actually sitting back over 20 yards away from the roadway. And whatever it was, you can see it's bobbing, moving side to side, and then something else catches our attention just to the right of it, behind about a 6-foot tall bush that was pretty well bloomed out. Right behind it, you could see another set of eye shine that was standing around the 6.5-foot level. And oh, well, what the heck is that? And then we started seeing, are we looking at squatches, guys? Could these be squatches? I mean, that's, we were getting excited. Yeah. And to top it off, I swear to you could ask Tracy, Cliff, any of them. We saw something to the right of that. It was around 4 foot high. You could see the eye shine. It was around 4 foot high. And then you could slowly see it rise. It rose, I swear to you, it rose at least almost 8 foot tall. And it was, of course, it was much higher than the other two set of eye shines. And it was blinking its eyes. We seen head movement. You could see how it had its eye shine while we were seeing it, and you could see how the head turned, and then it looked black, looked back at us. And meanwhile, the smaller subject was kind of moving around, and it was still kind of doing this swaying movement. And I don't know, we were all acting excited. I didn't know Cliff Stanley, he actually pulled his camcorder out, and he started filming. All of us had headlamps on. This is what don't get me. Why didn't we not see more of the body? There was the tall one. The tall one is what we seen a slight silhouette on. You can see a round-looking head. But this is what gets me. We couldn't make out no body. All we saw was eye shine, the blinking of the eye shine. You could see the head movement. That's all we saw. But you could hear our activity. We were excited. Some of us were giving off weird, goofy vocalizations, trying to maybe trigger a response of some sort. Well, we never got a response, but it's like whatever they were very curious and standing there watching us, and then they all kind of slowly start. You could see them all turn off. They all walked off further into the woods, which was a lot more darker.
Hmm.
Well, we went back the next day, that next morning, and we went back to that very spot. And two of us got down there, got behind where we were seeing them, and I think it was Tracy Arnold. Yeah, Tracy Arnold stayed up the road. Me and Cliff Stanley were out there. We were the tallest two out of the group, and and we get back there, and Tracy's like, "Daniel, you got to raise your hand above your head." I slowly started raising it, and he said, "Daniel, that eye shine was just above your hand." I said, "Are you serious?" You know, from where we were standing and where Tracy was, you could clearly see how much higher he was compared to us. So the eye shine was basically almost level to Tracy standing on the road. And the other thing is, well, we try to look for foot tracks or impressions in that ground. You can't really make nothing out. That it was a lot of thorns around there. The grass was kind of like clumpy already, so there was definitely no evidence of no tracks of any sort. Sometimes some of the area you can make out deer tracks in there, because I know the area is full of deer right in there. But whatever
Well, what do you
we
think
were.
is the best? What do you think is the best approach? More of an active approach, like actually squatching, or more of a passive approach where I am right now in my research, just camping and see what happens? What do you
Well,
think? No call blasting, no, just go camping and in an area where it's a possibility that Sasquatch could be, or actually going camping. Because my thing is with it's unfortunate with television and everything else. You do a
yeah.
call blast. If anybody's in the area, they've probably seen television shows,
Oh yeah.
and they'll holler back to you. And it's been said how many people that have recorded what they say is a Bigfoot is actually just somebody off responding to them because they've seen something on television. To me, I like the more passive approach
Right.
where I just go camping.
Right. Well,
And
most
I'm
of the time,
go camping.
yeah, most of the time when I go, I'm by myself most of the time. Um, very few times I've had, like I said, I've had experiences when I'm by myself, but sometimes it seems like more happens when I have somebody else with me. But um, but yeah, when I'm camping, I don't, I'll use my night vision, whatever, to scan the woods, stuff like that. But yeah, I pretty much relax and enjoy my camping. I usually have a fire going, whatnot. I might be sipping on a drink that I have, and
Well, that's
um,
kind of the thing. I mean, how many sighting reports have we heard where something came into the camp and was watching us while we were camping?
yeah,
Because one of the techniques
um,
that I've used on past expeditions is, like with Nesra, is where we'll set up a base camp and there'll be 2 or 3 tents set up, and they got the fire going, and they're cooking food, and they're doing their thing like just regular campers would. I'll get off into an area where I think maybe something
right.
in to see what the campers are doing and try to catch something. So that's like I said,
Oh
that's
yeah.
where I am now is that bait camp, I call it. Use a bait camp
Oh
where
yeah.
even if it's a dummy camp where you set up a tent, you set up a fire, you throw some food on, even if you're by yourself and you go off in the woods and watch in a spot where you think something might come in to try to just check out the camp to see what's going on, because we've all, I'm sure you have, we've all heard those reports where something came into camp while we were camping to
Oh
check.
yeah.
So to me, I use that with all these sighting reports. I use that as a way to, like I said, I'll set up in an area and see, would this be a likely area where something would come in to just check out and see what the campers are doing. And I'm trying to set up in an area so I can watch them trying to come into an area to watch what the campers are doing.
Right. Now, I'll tell you what. When I am camping, I mean, I have given off like I'll give off out of curiosity, see if it might get a response. I'll give off like a whoop, because I have heard whoops in the woods very close to me, and um, but the thing is, at night, late at night, I've heard tree knocks. But I'll give off a tree knock to see if I get a response. Um, at night, I never got a response giving off tree knocks. I've actually gotten responses during the day. But yeah, I mean, basically at camp, yeah, I'm somebody who, you know, I'm very observant as far as hearing wise. I listen, you know,
Yeah.
that's the main thing. I always listen, either if it's vocalization or I try to listen for movement around the camp. I'll tell you one thing that happened to me one time when one of the last times I was camping. Now this was during hunting season, and the deer move around a lot. Getting pushed around from hunters moving into the areas. And I know I wasn't the only camper that time because there was other hunters that camped in that area at that time. And but I'm sitting there next to my fire, and oh, I don't know. Somehow I lost. I don't know what happened. I got kicked out. I don't know. Do you know where Corey went? Did he get? He must have lost connection somehow.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, okay. That's weird.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what is. I know there's. It sounds like this. It could be the network on my end. It might be on my end. Um. I don't know. Well, before I get kicked off, what I was explaining as far as just basically sitting here at camp, listening. Keeping it simple. Um. Hey, Corey, I got kicked off too, man.
Yeah, it must have been, I don't know, we've been on too long maybe or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. 7, 8, 9. Well, it's been 2.5 hours so far. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what I was explaining, I was at my camp, just sitting there next to the fire, just relaxing, and I started hearing movement up directly behind me, up in the woods. I was like, you could hear it. You could like, okay, that's like you could hear the deer scuffling around in the leaves, kicking around, feeding or whatever. Then just within minutes later, I swear you can hear like a stampede or what sounded like a bunch of feet. And I get, I'm listening. I'm sitting there. I start leaning over my chair. I'm listening to it, kind of turning my head like I'm doing now. I said, whatever it is, it sounds pretty heavy and it's getting close. Like there's more than one of whatever it is. And you can steadily hear it coming closer and closer. And I stand up and I look over in that direction. I'm trying to shine my light over there. I'm not seeing nothing. And I yell out. I say, "Hey, who's over there?" And whatever it was kept coming, kept coming, kept coming. And by the time I was trying to find my spotlight. I said, "Where the heck is my spotlight at?" Because I know that would have lit up the woods like daytime. And I couldn't find it at that time. Whatever it was coming running towards me, and it would have took it took a sharp right. Well, their right, whatever it was, and I just so happened to have my shotgun with me. I picked up my shotgun and then finally found my spotlight. I said, what the hell is that? I walked out to the road, had my spotlight on, had my gun ready. I said, what the hell's out here? Was that a bears running through here or something? I was just curious. But I went across the road where I heard the direction where they went, and you could hear like a lot of zigzag running back and forth. I said, man, that's a bunch of deer in there. I mean, I didn't know what the heck it was. They sounded so heavy though. It was like a whole herd of them. Just running directly to its camp. And
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely had me on edge because, like I said, it made me jump up and yell like, "Hey, who's there?" You know.
But see
But
that's why I like the whole set up a camp and then
yeah,
take out off in the woods the camp.
right,
Done it a few times with Nesra where, we would set up our main base camp and me and another researcher or even by myself, we'd go off and watch an area. Well, here's a nice trail coming in, game trail, whatever, or here's a natural route of travel. I'm going to set up here and see if I can catch something going by. I've always been kind of a fan of that approach to it. Because
right,
sitting in camp and there's 10 people around, what's that? It's off in the woods, you can't see. If you got a couple of people setting up, you know, out in the woods, maybe they'd catch something that maybe the people in the camp wouldn't.
right. Hmm. Yeah.
It's a dummy
Um.
camp, is basically the term I use, a dummy camp. Or, like I said, a dummy camp is actually, I've heard of people using that, and I've done it myself, where you set up a camp. Tent,
Right.
sleeping bag, get a fire going, throw some bacon on the fire, and then go off in the woods 50 yards and just
Well,
watch the camp that you set up and see what comes in to investigate.
yeah, where we've had that experience, Tracy and all that during that same expedition, not too far from behind where we had our camp from, just on the other side of this stream that ran behind camp. Um, Tracy, it's something. It was an idea he wanted to try, and he had a small little dome tent. He set that up in this one area, which the area looked promising, like something would have came through there, And he kept this little tiny dim light that was inside of it, maybe sparked the interest of something that might have came by. And at the same time, he had a trail camera set up, probably about 10 feet away, um, underneath some other pine saplings and cedar trees, kind of set low to the ground, just hitting directly at the tent where he had set up the dummy tent. Never had anything on it. The only thing we had was us setting it up, And of course, by the time we went, because the tent was there for like maybe 2 or 3 days, and I think it was it got blown over, from the wind. But because all it was a cheap little dome tent we just set up there. We didn't try to get all
I,
technical with it.
good. I think it's a worthwhile thing, especially like I said, if you're on expedition. You got people set up in a certain area. Well, stake out where they're set up. I've got a hammock I can hang up basically anywhere. Set that up along what you think might be a likely route of travel in, where something would come in and just to check out the camp and see what's going on. Just get a
Right.
just get a bunch of people just coming in, just camp, eat, drink, be merry, play music, whatever, and a few people off in different directions, staking out that camp with the game cams if they have them or whatever else. Like I said, I've always been kind of a fan of that because you hear that all the time. We were just camping, and something came into the camp to see what we were doing. You hear that one all the time. It seems like.
And I mean, like I know a lot of other people say it, and I agree. I mean, when people ask me, well, what do you think about Bigfoot? What kind of creature do you think they are? Well, I personally believe they are a very curious creature. They're curious, but yet cautious at the same time. So, yeah, so I believe that if they're, I don't know, just from all the stories in the local reports I get, from the stories, my buddy, at work told me, even though he's not saying it was a Bigfoot, I mean, where this area he was camped out at, he's had something literally move his camper, and from the way it got kicked or pushed. And then like I said, the similar incident happened this past year, and and keep in mind, he actually, when it happened to him, he ran out with his pistol, didn't see or hear nothing. But what was funny about it, what was very interesting, about a minute after he got back in, it happened again. So there was something or somebody in the area, and where he was set up camp, it's a pretty secluded area. So unless there's somebody out there in the middle of those woods where he was at, hanging out for some reason late at, in the middle of the woods, playing around. For what reason we don't know, but yeah, he believes there was something else.
Yeah.
But
And,
even though he wasn't admitting to it.
like I said, I would use that if you guys have your expedition coming up in Virginia. To me, I would try to do that. Just have a bunch of people set up that do the game calling and whatever else, but just basically camp.
Right.
Eat, drink, be merry, and have a few people off set up in different areas, maybe trying to catch something coming in.
Right.
It'd be beneficial.
Oh yeah.
You got some video cameras going, maybe that would help too, of course.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with this thing. I've had this for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years now. This camcorder has been through, rain, a lot of heavy rain. It's been dropped. I mean, if you look here at the back of the battery, I've actually had the battery held together. I don't even have a backup battery. That's taped up. I got glue holding this piece up because it's broken, cracked. But now, if you open it up, now you probably won't be able to tell anyway. It may not even do. Hold on, let me see something. Yeah, hold on, let me see something. It's actually working right now. Lately, it's been really messing up on me because when you open it up, I know you probably can't see it, but let me hold it up right. Yeah, 'cause usually this film is like it's like you can't see nothing, but it's actually working right now. Surprisingly, it's poor thing's been through hell and back. But
Well, that's why I'm going with we're going to be picking up a GoPro.
yeah,
The GoPro Hero 4 Silver. It shoots in low light, high def.
okay,
You get all sorts of hours out of it, out of full battery. That's what we're going to be picking up. So I think I'm going to start utilizing that a little more, and maybe I can get some video. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
not really
I've
gonna
used my
matter.
GoPro for a little bit. Yeah, because I not long ago I bought 4 of them. I kept one for myself. Glenn's got one. I gave one to Fred, and Tracy's got one as well. And you know, some I know Fred's been wanting to use one for a long time. I think more and more people starting to get involved with using the GoPros. Like you probably seen pictures of me posting them. I'll put it on the back of my my rucksack, like on the bar, facing behind me. Um, then again, it probably wouldn't hurt facing behind in front of you too, because you may not catch something that might, you might overlook something, but or if you do see something, you might automatically get it on camera.
Well, that was kind of my thing because I've known a few researchers. There was a guy in Nesra that had one. He had a helmet cam. It wasn't a
Yeah.
GoPro, but he got a little video camera and mounted it on a helmet that he used to wear.
Right.
The whole thing was is that he didn't have a viewfinder,
Hmm.
so he couldn't really tell what exactly he was looking at, and so that's why with the GoPro, the Hero 4, the silver one, it actually has a built-in viewfinder. It actually has a screen built into the back of it.
Yeah.
And I've got a guy, a local dude. He's a ghost researcher that I ran into, but he can actually take those and make them so they can shoot IR,
Yeah.
so they can shoot in complete dark. He goes in and alters them so they can shoot in complete darkness.
Well,
So that might be a
yeah.
thing.
If you got, I don't know what your budget is, but if you got the money, they actually make a FLIR specifically made for the GoPro. I mean, you're talking, uh, it could be anywhere from between $1,200 up to $2,000,
Wow.
which I think it's pretty interesting. I think a lot of them use that more for like maybe like when they mount them and set them up on like the drones and stuff like that. But
Oh.
I don't know. That's kind of like almost pointless, I think, because if you crash your drone, you just wasted $2,000 alone.
Yeah. And the GoPro we're looking at is like $500, and then to spend another 12, that's a lot. And see, to me, I won't spend the GoPro. We would use for other things. Besides, I would use it when I go squatching, but
Yeah,
I'm not one to spend money exclusively on squatching gear. And I know people do. I've
yeah.
people that have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on it, but I've
I
known people
mean,
that have actually ruined their marriage because they've spent so much money on their squatching gear. And see, I won't
yeah.
do that, but
Like a majority of the stuff I got, for camp. I mean, a lot of it's for camp use as well. Like my headlamp right here. This thing here is awesome. 6,000 lumens right here. $26 right here. I see they have this for sale on some link I see floating around Facebook. I think they want a lot more for it. But if you look on eBay and all the other websites, this is the actually average going price for this here. It's got two large rechargeable batteries that go right here in the back, and it's got the different settings. It's just that's just one thing. I got other bright little handheld flashlights. If
yeah,
I go camping with more than one person, if we separate by any chance, I mean, I got a good set of walkie-talkie, two-way Midland extra
yeah,
all-weather radio, so
yeah.
36-mile range.
That's what actually the few things I've actually bought. I bought some Motorola radios when I was
Yeah.
fishing, and I bought a Night Owl Pro, the night vision monocular.
Oh, okay.
That's
Hey,
basically all I've ever spent on. Basically, it's exclusively squatching gear. So
well, hey, let me ask you this. I think mine's over there. I think it's over there. I'll have to show you. Are you familiar with the iGen 2020 night vision binocular?
no,
Hold on. I think I got it within reach here. Hold on. Let me go look real
mine's
quick.
an old. I bought mine probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's a Night Owl.
Yeah.
But the only thing is with mine is that there's no audio or video inputs or outputs on it.
Okay. Well, see, that's what I was gonna ask you because mine.
Can't record off it but mine's older. They make, I think, basically the same model now, but it also you can hook it up to like a video camera
Oh,
and
okay.
do it that way. See, mine doesn't do that.
See,
Mine's just basically a spotting scope that does infrared.
yeah. What I have here. Uh, hold on. This is the first night vision I got. When I was looking into this particular model, which I'll show you here in a second when I turn my video on. Hold on. Now, this is right here. This is made by iGen. It's iGen 2020. Actually, it's made. I think it's actually made. I don't have the bar. It is a Night Owl device. And right here is your video output right here. And this thing is awesome. It's got several settings. You can use different color settings. It's got the green, yellow, blue, red.
It looks like you have like the newer version of the one that I have.
Well, there's ones that actually take an SD card, which I really wish this is what this was. I wish it was a little bit more easier to deal with. But when I started looking into these devices here, I was seeing them for almost $800. And I did enough shopping around. This device right here, I was able to find the same one through Amazon. I paid like $450 for this right here, where elsewhere it was almost $800. But
Yep.
I'll tell you what, you might have seen this one here. This is my newest night vision, and I'm in love with this thing because when I took it out in the field to do a testing, because I'm still getting used to it, even though I did one of my videos on Facebook. This little thing right here, made by Carson, Aurora Plus. Here's the buttons. If you don't see the 4 buttons on it, well, yeah, if it's only got the power button and 2 other buttons, it doesn't record. But this one here does. It takes an SD card, a micro SD card. It does pictures and video. And I paid $182 for this thing. I'm very impressed with this little device.
Right.
Fits in the palm of your hand. It's got this neat little pouch.
Yep.
It's excellent. Like I said, I'm still getting used to it though.
It's amazing how far those things have come along, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Used to be like the base model night vision was like $1,000. I think the
Yeah.
Night Owl Pro, the one that I have, was like 300. But
Oh,
like I
okay,
said,
yeah.
it doesn't do. There's no audio or video inputs or outputs. It doesn't record. It's basically just a night vision monocular. But I saw
Right.
3 bills. I think I don't know. Maybe even bought it at Walmart. It was like $300. Like, well, that's pretty cool. It'd be nice to have it. It doesn't shoot very far. You're good out to about 30 yards, maybe.
Right.
But
Oh, yeah.
it just
Um,
I have now. And I basically what I did is I have an old, which a lot of people use apparently. I have an old Sony high 8 camcorder. It uses the little small little video. It actually uses videotapes, and it
oh,
has the night shot ability on it, where it's got night shot built right into it. You flip a little switch and you can shoot in the dark, but it's only good out to about 10 yards. What people were doing is they were taking like the Night Pro, the monocular that I have, and using the IR illuminator and mounting them together, and you can get out to like apparently like 100 yards and shoot video.
oh, wow.
But the only difference is, the only thing is that it's actual video tape. It looks like a small VHS tape. It's high,
Right.
so it's basically useless because if you shoot anything, then you have to get an adapter to transfer
Yeah.
digital and the whole thing. But I've used it a couple times. The thing works awesome. When my wife and I have been camping, you can
Yeah.
go out to, like I said, 100 yards and see in complete darkness. The thing works pretty
Wow.
cool.
I'll tell you another good plus on this here. It's got 3 power settings of the infrared that it uses. But it has another technology too. If you got a little bit of moonlight out, if you do not use infrared, you can use it uses natural light, and you can see at nighttime with just the right kind of lighting. If you can see as far as you can in the daytime with this thing. That's how impressive this is. I mean, I believe I got my money's worth. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very content with it. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. As far as the video output, I watched a couple YouTube videos on this product here, where the gentleman was explaining he actually had a DVR and with a video output, and I was like, oh, well, that sounds pretty simple enough because you go to the settings, you put on your video settings on as you going through it, and I actually hooked it up on my DVR, which is also a dash cam, and I was like, what? I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I'm thinking maybe it's my dash cam. It's not compatible. It's not the right kind of DVR. And when I learned exactly what the gentleman in the video was using, it's a type of DVR dash cam or DVR that's made by Orion. It's, I think it's like $180 something for that device.
Hmm.
Now the thing is, I'm afraid if I was to try to get something like that and it's still not working, apparently it's something I might be doing if I still can't get it to work. But I don't know. I really would love to get the video on that thing because the footage on that is, amazing. So, but I don't know. One day maybe I'll get somebody that's a little bit more, familiar with that kind of stuff to kind of show me.
I've talked to people having been involved in like different paranormal research sort of thing, and people have suggested different setups to me, and they said for like $1,000 you can get 5 cameras, a DVR. They're all IR. You can record
Right.
off of them. They're all battery operated, but it's $1,000. And to me, it's
Oh,
to spend that kind of money. I would have a hard time justifying that to my wife.
yeah. Right.
Yes, to go big for. And my thing is that are you going to get good enough of video that's going to be that definitive
Yeah.
to spend that kind of money? I remember when the whole the FLIR camera. Remember when the FLIR camera became like the big thing?
Oh yeah.
FLIR. And I remember saying, all right, off the bat when that first happened, they're like, okay, so then you're going to get a glow in the dark blob squatch.
Well, yeah.
And you just spent $5,000 on this FLIR camera.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'll show you. Hold on, let
They
me.
have them now that I guess that mount to cell phones, the FLIR cameras.
Yeah, I got one right here. It's a FLIR One. I got it for my Android phone. I'll actually show you a still shot video. Well, it's from my video, but I did a still shot if I could find it right here. I think I posted on here.
But I think like anything else, eventually, when anything comes out, it's expensive, and after a while, then it's not so expensive anymore. So,
Well, like, do you own a smartphone by any chance?
I don't know. My wife has one.
Okay. Well, actually, they make
I
them.
don't have
They
a
make
cell.
a FLIR.
Believe it or not,
Yeah.
I don't have a cell phone.
Huh. Well,
What? What do you mean? I know, huh? And people go, "What? You don't have a cell phone?"
all right, everybody. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Technical issues or something. Network issues. We're keeps
Yeah, I'll keep
keeping us
getting
off.
off here. I don't know.
Yeah. Uh. Oh no. I was actually going on another page. I was actually going to show you. I'll have to find it and share it to you later. But maybe it's on my phone. I don't know. But yeah, they make the FLIR One. It's a very affordable device. Of course, they make it for two versions. They make one for the iPhone and they make one for Android. Of course, I have the Android. The Android is actually, $250 is the going price on that, and it's $100 cheaper for the iPhones. But they actually have now another one. It's more like the monocular one that they have out. That's more common. Um, that one there they have coming out. It's not officially out yet, but you could actually probably pre-order it. Um, which they say you can see a little over past 1,000. Oh no, a little over 100 yards, like a little bit beyond the length of a football field. Which I think that's pretty good considering in the field. I mean,
Well, you're in the
yeah.
woods. You're not going to be able to see that far, anyways.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
1,000 yards. You're not going to see 1,000 yards in the woods.
Yeah. I
Something like
mean,
up to 100 yards, you should be good.
yeah. I mean, with what I got, I did a couple different field tests with mine, and I'm actually impressed at the distance that it puts out itself. Um, But yeah, if you actually go onto my YouTube videos, I got two different FLIR videos, made from my own phone from off the FLIR One. But yeah, but the new device, the new monocular that FLIR has, it's $600, which I think they're trying to make them affordable for people, that don't have a deep pocket, like
Yeah.
others. Because I think a lot of times the FLIR, it's used for a lot of commercial business and use, for plumbing and electrical and
Well, that's what I was going to say. Somebody had mentioned they said that if you look like a lot of the states, like whatever state you live in, they'll do like auctions of old equipment, old gear, that sort of thing.
yeah.
The people have actually picked up like our fire department here in town has a FLIR camera.
Yeah, I've heard of local ones. I never actually checked into stuff like that. Sometimes they have ones that they might, sell or real cheap or, you know,
Yeah, they're selling like they just bought this year's model and they're selling last year's model for pretty
yeah.
decent money. It's been used, but it's used, of course, but for pretty decent money. And I've heard people say that, well, I bought this one and it's normally $3,000. I got it for $1,000 because it's used from my local fire department.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the states will do that. They'll auction off like old equipment, used equipment, that sort of thing.
Yeah, my father once mentioned he said he was going to try to get into contact with my cousin. She's married to an FBI agent, and she was going to call and talk to him, see if he had access to like all night vision equipment and stuff like that. I said no. I said don't do that. I said we don't stay in touch with them like that. It'd be a little bit different if we stayed in contact with them and he thought it'd be cool to check with them about the stuff like that. Maybe he does have access to certain equipment.
But like anything, prices will come down. I mean, it used to be you couldn't get a FLIR for less than a couple $1,000s. Now you can get one for less than $1,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Once they realize that, hey, just regular people want these things, and the stuff that they would sell to you and I will be better than what maybe they'll sell to you and I today if you wait a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm watching the live chat, people talking about the different equipment and stuff that we're talking about, and yeah, I hear one person say, talking about a parabolic dish. I tell you, parabolic dishes are expensive too. Now, depending on what kind you want, like what I have is very cheap, and it works awesome. It works really good, especially when you're out in the woods. Now, if you read it when you order, it tells you can hear up to 300 feet. Well, I'm telling you what, that's a lie. You can hear a lot further. Because I know I've used it enough out in the woods, and for $45, they have different ones. They have the Uzi, which I don't have the Uzi. Mine's I forget what's mine. Mine's more for like it advertises parabolic microphone dish, whatever. With it's a handheld. It looks just like the Uzi model. And they have a recording option. You record and play back what you hear. One other thing I used to do, and I showed it before, you could take it and take the right wire, you plug it into your digital audio device, and plug it directly into your parabolic mic, and you could record on a steady line. You got to make sure you have the right device. You like take your audio recorder and just plug it on the end and into it. But yeah, you can go on Amazon, eBay. eBay is where I got mine. Like I said, $45 for a good parabolic mic.
Yeah, there was a guy that was when I was involved with Nesra. He was big into the audio thing, and he had a bunch of different audio recorder setups, and he had made one that was audio recorder setup, a parabolic dish, and he had sent it off to somebody because everything's available online. And he could get, like, I think it was, I want to say 24 hours battery life of it, so he could record. And he bought like a $30 parabolic dish off the internet. And
how much? $30, you said?
Yeah, basically it was like this cheap, it looked to me anyways, it looked like a cheap plastic, like, parabolic dish with the microphone in it.
Oh, but yeah.
He had it all done up where he had these setups where he could take these setups, put them out in the woods, and they record for 24 hours at a time.
Well, I'll tell you, you could do the digital audio recorder, like this one here. I tell you what, it picks up long range, very long range. This here's a $40 little device. You can leave this out in the woods alone. I've had this on a fresh set of batteries. The longest I ever had a recording, because I left it out for a whole week. I've had over 45 hours of audio recording on here. It took me a long time to go through it all, but over 45 hours, and it's got its own built-in memory. It don't take no SD card or nothing. I mean, 2 AAA batteries, and the thing is amazing. But yeah, like Fred Candy, he actually makes his own homemade parabolic dish. You could get the little mini microphones and stuff like from Radio Shack or something like that. And he used like a plastic Tupperware salad bowl, and he had the mic. He had like a I forget what he used to go in the center of it, but he took like pantyhose lining, used that as a cover, almost like to muffle the sound, whatever, or
Well, I've seen people make them out of frisbees, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
Take a frisbee, drill a hole in the center. You get the good microphone to go in the center, because
right.
You have that big mass of area that it's going to track the sound. I've even seen that. So that's the thing. You can spend all sorts of money on the top of the line gear, but you can also look around online and see how to like MacGyver it.
Exactly.
Stuff that could be almost as good.
Right.
You know, like I said, I know that this local guy who you buy like one of the GoPro cameras, and he'll alter it to do infrared. You send him the camera, you send him $50, and he'll do it so it sets up so it shoots in complete darkness. So there's
Um,
good stuff out there that you can do, and you don't have to spend a ton of money on it.
yeah. Hey, the gentleman you were just talking about who could do the infrared thing, is he from Night Callers?
Um,
I can't remember. There's a gentleman when I was on Night Callers radio uh, for the first time. He was chatting with me after we got done. He was explaining to me about a couple things, and he actually shared one of his videos where you could turn like a digital or like a camcorder or most of the older ones into night vision, and I don't know how he does it. I wouldn't know how to do it anyway. But he's very familiar with that kind of technology and how to
yeah,
tamper with stuff.
I don't know if this is the guy. I ran into him at a paranormal conference. And we
Mm.
were talking because he was actually selling these GoPro cameras that he had altered already.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, "Well, can you do this?" He goes, "Yeah, you just buy the camera." He goes, he goes, "I'll take it and I'll alter it." I had some. You have to have infrared, the IR lights built, added into it.
Right.
But he said, "Yeah." He goes, "I can pretty much take any GoPro camera and do that." The only thing with that is once he does it, you can only do infrared.
Right.
You can only do so. You can't use it during the day. You can only use it at night.
Well, that's where you get a second one in hand on hand. I'll
Yeah,
tell you what. Like
I'll
they
see.
make
I'll see if I
GoPro.
can find his information for you.
All right.
I'll
Yeah,
see if
that'd be
I
cool.
can find the information for you. Yeah, because I thought it was pretty cool that he could do that. Because yeah, he goes in, he takes it all apart. Solders up this, that, the other thing, adds a different. I think he changes the lens on it, adds IR lights to it. But yeah, you give him the camera, he alters it for you, charges you a few bucks, and makes it into an IR camera.
Yeah. On the live chat, I don't think he's asking. Sasquatch Supernatural says they have a GoPro night vision, which I didn't know that. If that's what he's saying, or I don't know if he's asking.
Which I don't believe. When we were looking into buying a new camera, we looked at the GoPros because we heard they're
Right.
some of the best ones. They
Oh,
have they have the GoPro black and silver. We were looking at the silver because
yeah.
it does shoot well in low light, and
Yeah.
there's coming out with a GoPro 5 pretty soon. Maybe
Okay.
one does, but I'm not a expert on them, but I don't
Right.
have one that necessarily when you buy it does IR. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I'm not familiar with that though.
Now, how do you feel about GoPros that are not officially GoPros that are more of like an off brand?
Well,
That
I think
the
it's like anything else. You buy like with any brand of anything. There's the official brand, and then there's the rip-offs.
right.
I mean, GoPro's known. Apparently they take a beating really well. They're
Oh yeah.
weatherproof and everything else. I mean, maybe there's another company that makes ones that are just as good, if maybe not better. But to me, I've always heard GoPro is the way to go because you can do so many different things with them.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna send you a link when I get a chance. Actually, I might be able to send it to you now. Hold on. There's one because recently, not long ago, I just bought four of them, and like the price, like the ones you were talking about. What are the price ranges on them?
The GoPro 4 Silver we were looking at was about $400.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't. Wow. I knew they were in the hundreds, but I didn't think they were that high.
Yeah. The one with the GoPro, That's like one of the latest models. Although, like I said, they're supposed to be coming out with the GoPro Hero 5, which each one, of course, gets a little better than the last one.
Right.
On the GoPro Hero Silver Edition, we were looking at the black is supposed to be better, but I like the silver because it does apparently better in low light conditions.
Yeah.
They're about $400. But the thing is what I find odd with GoPro is that it doesn't come with memory cards. You buy them,
Oh.
you buy them brand new, and apparently they all come like that. You buy them, they don't come with the little micro SD cards. You have to
Yeah,
buy,
the ones I bought. Oh, wait a minute. No, I did have to buy one separate, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is odd to me, but they don't. We were looking at Best Buy, and you get
Right.
a camera and a battery. We wanted to get an extra battery and two good cards, but just the camera and the battery is about $400.
Hmm.
So when I asked the person that I called at Best Buy, all right, so we'll get the camera, an extra battery, and two cards. What are we looking at? And they said about $500,
Hmm.
which I find odd. You think they wouldn't give you at least a small card,
Right.
8 gigs or whatever? But I guess she said no. None of the ones they sell apparently come with the cards.
Hold on. Let me see if I can find what I'm trying to find because I'm looking into my Amazon account, trying to pull up my. Um. Hmm. I'm trying to look at my recent purchases. Usually should pull up. Oh, shopping history. That'll make sense. There it is, right there. Let me click on it. Now, all right. What I'm gonna do, I just copied it. I'm gonna paste it to your Facebook Messenger, and then I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna copy and paste it. Here, hold on. There you are. Just feel free to check this out. This is I don't know if it'll take you directly to what I just it was under my shopping history. So you could try that, and then I'm gonna go on here since I posted it there, and try to copy and paste it. Hopefully I don't get disconnected again because I'm on Facebook right now on another page.
Yeah, see, that seems like a different. The one that Glenn sent me a link,
Yeah, was it?
and that one shows the adapted version where it's been already set up for the infrared
Right.
modified infrared night vision camera. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's one there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the one you talking about, the one I shared with you?
No, Glenn sent me one.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, GoPro 4 Black plus modified infrared night vision camera.
Ah.
Yeah.
And what's the price on that there?
Um, $1,099.
Woo.
Yeah, yeah, they're not cheap. They're really not. Yeah, they're really not. I'll have to find that link to that fella that makes those that adapts them for you because I think it was only like he was only charging like $100. Basically, you buy the camera, you give it to him, he charges you $100 and he adapts it for you.
Yeah, just for the viewers, I posted the link to that GoPro product I just posted. That link to it. It's one of the ones I just basically I made a purchase on. I've actually bought 4 of them. because at the price that they're set at, they're like awesome prices. So yeah, check it out. I mean, it works great. Fred Candy just posted a video of the same one that I bought for him. The footage is actually real good. It's high. There's different resolutions. You have your sightings. You can do pictures, video. Um, like Lori Rogers on the live chat mentioned earlier, the GoPro audio, they're not the best, but the footage is very good. It's very clear footage, and I'm very impressed. And that one there, the link I posted on the live chat and to you, Corey, it comes with a protective case. You don't have to use it in the casing, but the case is it's fully waterproof casing. You could be out in the pouring rain. You could swim with it, and
Yeah,
use it under the water.
I guess from what I understand, they all come with that
Right.
waterproof case. That's why I thought it was kind of odd. So you buy the camera, you get the waterproof case, but you
Right.
don't micro SD cards.
Yeah, that's the thing. I did have to buy I did have to buy that.
It's like, oh, we do all our computer stuff and technology stuff through Best Buy.
Yeah.
We bought all our laptops, all our Asus laptops through them. And when I called and asked them, it doesn't come with a card. Really? It doesn't come with even a basic card? And they no, it comes with a
Yeah.
battery. You get that waterproof case. You get a few different mounts for it, which is nice with the GoPro.
Yeah.
A bunch of different mounts that come with it, and you can buy like 100 different kind of mounts for it. Suction cup mounts and helmet mounts, and I just thought it would be good because you can take it out in the woods. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. You drop it, you get it wet, you don't have to worry about it.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
Well, like I said, when I talked to them at Best Buy, they said that camera, an extra battery, and 2 cards. They said we were looking at about 500 bills. So I didn't think that was too bad. Considering my last camera was, a high-8 Sony video camera.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I think before long, I mean, I was looking up video camcorders actually last night, and the one I found, I mean, it's perfect. The length of zoom, like the one I have, is 100 times zoom, 100 times digital zoom. And don't get me wrong, it works great, but if you're gonna zoom in that far, you need to have a tripod because like I was taking footage. I was up on one ridge trying to zoom across on the other ridge trying to look at something. And when you're zoomed in, and for one thing, I'm already on unstable ground. I'm on a steep ridge, and I'm trying to stand there the best I could and hold the camera steady, and it's just all shaky and everything. I mean, if I had a tripod, I could have made it work better, but
Well, that's one of the things I think people need to realize with the GoPro.
yeah,
As I know, they don't have zoom.
right, exactly.
You're taking a video of what you're seeing. That it's an action camera, is what they call it.
Yeah,
There's no zoom. You turn it on, you're recording. That's what you get. You can't zoom in on certain things, and so there are limitations. Of course, there are and like one of the people in the chat mentioned, the audio's not that great. I've
right.
heard that as well. But the thing is with the one we're looking at, the GoPro Hero 4 Silver, I guess the previous models didn't have any sort of way to add an external microphone. These do. So you can actually add an external microphone to it. So I'm sure as they get better, I'm sure by the time they get to the GoPro 10, they'll have zoom and IR and great audio. But where they are right now, I mean, just considering our previous video camera was about the size of a 6-pack of beer, where the GoPros now are about the size of a pack of cigarettes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's amazing, to be honest. Being an old guy, it's amazing how far technology has come along.
Oh yeah, it sure has. I mean, cell phones. Look at cell phones. Wow.
Well, I remember camcorders that actually used full-size VHS tapes.
Yeah, I got a VHS camcorder. I mean, it takes the you put in it takes the little mini ones, but then you got to take it and put in the big adapter one to play on old regular VHS
That's like
VCR.
that's like the Sony camcorder I have now. It looks like a VHS tape, but it's a lot smaller, about the size of a pack of cigarettes. But
Oh, okay.
the first camcorder I ever owned took actual full-size VHS tapes.
Hmm.
Got like 2 hours of recording time on it if you were lucky. That's why I look at these GoPros. I'm like, wow, this is, we can't cure the common cold, but yet they make these camcorders that are, video cameras, I'm sorry, that are this big. And take
Yeah.
little tiny card, like the same kind of card that goes in your phone.
Yep. Yeah. Which it's what's cool about these digital camcorders. Mine takes either you could put two SD cards in it at the same time. One's for backup pretty much, but you can use either one or the other. You could see you could use a full size or a micro. But usually, so a lot of people will put both of them in there. That way, if one's full, you could go back and you could switch over and save to your other backup card. But now this one here, this camcorder I have here, it's made by Bell and Howell. Which don't get me wrong, it's a good camcorder, and the reason I got this one here because it's got night vision on it.
Yeah, see, my old Sony has that. The night shot, they call it.
Yeah.
Where
Now,
it's got a little IR illuminator. You turn that on and you can shoot it in the dark. Yeah.
see, even though you're probably looking at it, it probably looks like a white light, but it's actually the red infrared light right there. Right here, it's where the infrared is. So, and then this light right here stays lit up when it's on anyway. So, and then of course you got your regular bright flashlight or whatever. But yeah, but this one here, like I said, this poor thing has taken a beating, and I'm surprised it works. It still works, but yeah. It's 10 times optical zoom and 100 times digital zoom. So, yeah. But yeah, this here, when I got this, I want to say this was around, I paid 204 for this one here. Yeah. But, yeah. But, yeah, eventually before long, I do need to get a little bit better one. But the one I was talking about before that has 1500 zoom, it's more of I don't want to say professional, but yeah, it's like $500 something for the one I saw, which was pretty cool looking. Hold on, what's on the line? I got.
Yeah, I'll have to look around and
Yeah.
find that fella's link, the one that takes the GoPros and adapts them into IR. I think that was a pretty good deal, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of switch topic. We were talking about footcasts and everything. Tracks and stuff. How some of them are. Some refer to them as physical evidence and so forth. I actually grabbed a couple more that I had. I thought I'd share them. This one here doesn't show good detail either. It didn't come out as good as I like to, but this one here, you can see some of the toes in this one. If I lay it down like this here, and sometimes they also keep in mind of the terrain that it was on. You got somewhat of a heel showing, and then let me show that way. You might be able to see some of the toes that way. Now, sometimes I'm not the best at cleaning casts off after they dry and everything, but here's one here. It was kind of a rough. Let me turn around this way. See it? Let me turn around. I'm trying to show the best angle. You might be able to see the toes in that there. You can see this big toe. I don't know why it came all funky looking right there, but I don't know. You can't. It's like it's missing maybe it's the way this toe here and this one here, the plaster made it combined, but you can see these toes here going up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then, let me see. Now this one here is around almost 14 inches. Yeah. You can see some of the toes in this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have other casts that probably show a little bit better, but this one here, I just grabbed these few here because when I was going through a few things, I picked them up and thought I'd bring them around to share them. So, yeah, but yeah, those are just a few of the. I know on Twitter, Cliff Brackman saw there was a big conversation going on, and they were talking about a couple things, and I just so happened to post a picture of my whole collection. I had a picture of all mine laid out, and Cliff Brackman, he says, I'd like to know some information on those casts and everything. You know, like I never did get back to him because he actually he gave me. I emailed him, then he emailed me back, and you know it was just small talk, and I never really gave him no information back on my cast. I don't know exactly what kind of information he wants. So like I was advised by a certain individual in the Bigfoot community. He's a nothing against Cliff Brackman, but keep in mind who he's associated with. Blah blah blah. Be careful on kind of information on as far as location wise, where if you don't want to expose your location, don't give out certain information. You know, which I don't know. Maybe that's why I probably hesitated to get back to him, but I don't know. But I think it was cool that he was interested in him, but he wanted to know some background story or background history on it. But I don't know. I might try to give him some kind of information without going into too much detail. But they came out of the same forest, but many miles apart. They weren't all. Not all my casts came from the same neck of the woods, but so. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, Sasquatch Supernatural said, "Wow." Lori says, "Those are crazy big." Well, those ain't as big. Those are only 12 to 14-inch tracks I just showed. I got my biggest one is 16 inches. It's actually broken half. I need to fix it. So, yeah. I'll have to. I wish I could post a link on the a picture on the live chat, but it won't let you do that. It only let you post comments and share the links. But yeah, if you guys want pictures of my cast and other stuff, I post some pictures on my website, which I posted that upper earlier to. I'll repost it right now. I'll type it in right now for the viewers on the live chat. Yeah, it's. Hold on. Make sure I'm typing it in right. You could browse through there, look at my blogs and everything that I have posted in there. I have a lot of my pictures on my Facebook page as well. If you go find me on Facebook, go onto my mobile uploads and stuff like that. I share a lot of different images on there. So, yeah. There it goes. So yeah, there it is, www.ecbro.wordpress.com. Yeah. Yeah, viewers, if you haven't done so, go to my feel free to give us a like on Facebook. We have an ECBRO like page as well. So you guys go check that out as well. You might find that interesting. We have the E.C.B.R.O. Discovery Project page. So as far as the E.C.B.R.O. Discovery Project, I haven't shared too much open information on that. Sometimes me and a few others, on occasion, we discuss things we want to work on or different techniques we want to try. But yeah, we have a few things we're working on that we want to try to put out there. One thing that we've shared and talked about before is doing a documentary. And that documentary was actually scheduled to be on the 26th of this month. But we're actually kind of putting that on hold. We are going to do something. I'm actually going to be camping that week. Like I said, I got my buddy Greg Corbin, him and his son, they're coming up. I mentioned it to Fred. I don't know. He hasn't gotten back to me if he wants to do that or not. I know it's a lot further away from where he's used to being, but that's the thing with me. I travel around. If it's in my ability, I do travel. That's why I mean, it's only an hour away from me. It's yeah, about a good hour from here. So, but it's worth the drive, and it's in a very awesome area. It's actually located just minutes from the West Virginia line. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm excited about June too. We got the Ohio Bigfoot expedition with the ECBRO team and the 8 team with Dan Baker. So we're all looking forward to that. I think we're expecting a good turnout because a lot of people signed up to go, and people are still learning about it. And like Paul Halsey mentioned, I think he mentioned it yesterday. He's gonna go up there, so I'll actually get to meet him for the first time in person. So yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. Yeah, are you able to take some time off, Corey?
Yeah, I have vacation time coming. I'm trying to pick which one. I'm doing 2 or 3 of them, so I'm not sure which one to go to. Virginia would be nice. Ohio would be great too. I don't know.
Yeah. Now later in September, oh yeah, September of this year, I'm gonna have one here in Virginia. Because I usually try to have one here in Virginia, at least one good one every year. I mean, I do a lot of small things on like weekends, long weekends. You know, um, but yeah, I am using some of my vacation time here in Virginia. 'Cause my first week of vacation is going to be in Ohio. So
So that's the big one. Is the one in Ohio?
yeah, right now, yeah, that's going to be we're expecting a good turnout in that one. That's going to be at Beaver Creek State Park in East Liverpool, Ohio.
So do you
So
have to make reservations for that, or?
yeah, as far as the campsites, which I believe the non-electric sites are still available, um, I'll have to go. I'll find you the link, send you the information. If you go under Facebook events, you should be able to find it on the Facebook events. You'll see that it's Dan Baker has it set up as we have the photo cover. It's got the ape and the ECBRO joint expedition with ape or whatever how it's labeled or titled. Um, yeah, but if you go under there, there should be the link for the location and phone numbers provided. Um, for the location itself. You call in the campsites. They are not as electric. They are $19 a day. So
Okay, yeah,
and
'cause I'm friends with Dan Baker. I'm actually looking at it right now.
oh, okay, cool.
I'll have to look and see if he has a link to it. Yeah, no electricity is fine. And just
Yeah,
when's the date? So because I have to put in for it for my
uh,
vacation time. So
yeah. These June 4th through the 11th. So
4th through the 11th. Okay.
which the 4th, which is a Saturday. Yeah, Saturday, and it starts on a Saturday. So yeah.
And Ohio's not that far from me, so.
Oh, Donald Redleaf is asking a question. He's asking me. He said, Dan, what went through your mind when you came across your first track? Well, it was definitely mind blowing. It was exciting to find something like that. You know, it the way I look at it, it tells you that it shows life. It definitely shows life. Of something's been through there you know, that you could comfortably feel and rule out that it wasn't from a person. I mean, unless there is people running around living in the woods barefoot. That's the way I look at it. I mean, so I definitely believe it was a squash track, but it was exciting. It was very exciting. Yeah, I think anyone like Corey, for example, how would you look at that if you came across a track? You're out in the woods and you see these fairly decent sized large humanoid tracks, and no one knew you were going to go into their area, and you were pretty deep in the woods, and you knew you were deep in the woods. Would that kind of like trigger any deeper curiosity or get you thinking differently if you were to come across anything like that?
Well, I don't think it would trigger any deeper, curiosity, but I would want to look into what's there, and I would just have to look at them and see. Are there any
Yeah,
others? Is there more than one tracks where there's one
yeah,
in the middle of a muddy area? Where's the others?
Right. Well, it's funny that you bring that up because
I
I
only
did.
took one picture of. I found 57 tracks, but I only took this one picture. That
Right.
would bother me. I would want to. I would try to track them and see where they led, where they came from. The more
Yeah.
information, the better. To me.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I did this. I was actually in Fred's area, and I was kind of walking through uh, a power line area, and there were some areas on the ground where it was grassy. Some areas it was bare spots of dirt and sand. Some of the ground was soft, some of the ground was hard. And I'm walking around, looking around, and I come across this very distinct, undeniable bear track. And I was like, oh, cool. This is, fairly decent sized bear. And I'm just looking around, just like, wait a minute. Why am I only seeing one? Where's the rest of them? you know? And so when I realized there was only one bear track there, I said, this is a good point. I'm seeing one bear track, and I showed it on film too. And I'm showing around very carefully around the area, and then I make a statement. I said a lot of people claim only seeing one squash track sometimes at a time, and my logical explanation for this is look at the soil you're standing on, the terrain. I mean, you just happen to the subject bear or any animal, like even deer tracks, you know, that most deer tracks do pick up and show. Sometimes you won't always see them in any trackway. You'll see them scattered or here or there. Um, and I think it depends on the terrain, the the level. I mean, the surface of the soil you're on. If it's hard, soft, because you could have hard and soft, next to each other. And that's my explanation for why we only find single tracks sometimes too. Um, Because like I use that bear track for a good example. I was like, well, there's only one track here. There's no others shown. But I don't see a one-legged footed bear hopping around in the woods. Um, but yeah, that's where I come up with my explanation on something like that. It depends on the soil and if the ground's hard enough. You know, but man, you know what? I could probably keep going on. Coming up with another topic to discuss, or just talk about. But I think before we have another disruption, because last time they almost didn't let me back on. I kept having to hit retry. But man, plus it's getting late anyway, so unfortunately we're gonna have to call it a night, everyone. um, Yeah, if we get any new viewers, if you're interested in like our discussions, I know they're random. We go from one topic to another. That's usually how every podcast turns out. That's what makes it interesting. And sometimes we'll come back to another topic that we were talking about earlier, and then it'll bring us to another level. But if you like what you hear and you like topics discussed, because we like interaction from our viewers, questions, comments, it actually adds to our discussion and makes it very interesting. Um, so we try to look at things at all different points of views and hear everybody's inputs and opinions, um, and at the same time we try to make it fun and entertaining. Um, so meanwhile, if you haven't done so, if you're new and just now viewing this for the first time, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date and keep up with our future podcast shows. Again, thank you everybody. I don't know. I got in the habit of doing that now, so.